Chapter 491. The baby sleeping in the cabin was held in Athylem's arms. If we came a little later, the backup battery in this cabin would have run out. State Zero, who had returned to his white cat form, looked at the girl who was holding the baby in her arms. Thank you for your hard work. State Zero, the white cat, was speaking the truth. Lei Mingkai's gaze swept over the cabin that was lying quietly in the middle of the pile of rubble, and he nodded slightly. Then, he waved his hand and signaled everyone to return to their positions. On the other side, Edel Lizo silently looked at the tearful smile on Athylem's face. He couldn't help but feel sorry for her. She had never seen Princess Iselaram like this before. Even after the destruction of King Vice, Aethelem didn't shed a single tear because of this. Come, Adelizo, can you help me carry Angela? But before Adelizo could say anything to comfort her, Athyllem took the initiative to pass the baby in her arms to Adelizo. Princess Athyllem. Although the 12-year-old Adelizo had seen babies before, she had never held one. Even if she had such a plan when she was young, her maids at home would not let her take the risk. It's okay. You just have to do this. This way, you can hold Angela. If you're tired, you can sit on the ground. Please. What made Adelizo feel even more strange was that Athyllem, who was the only daughter of the viceroyal family, actually taught her how to hold a baby step by step and even gave her suggestions. Adelizo, whose little brain was gradually turning to mush, could not refuse Adelizo's request at all. He could only carefully take the baby from Adelizo's arms and sit on a relatively flat piece of gravel next to her. Thank you very much, Adelizo. Athyllem smiled faintly. After thanking her little handmaiden, she turned to Lei Mingkai and gave him a salute while holding the corners of her skirt. Captain Knight, thank you very much. This, Lord Sacred Beast, thank you very much for your help. No need to thank me. This can be considered as a token of my appreciation. Lei Mingkai did not accept Athylem's kindness. At the end of the day, Lei Mingkai and the others had something to do with the razing of the city to the ground. Yes, it was as easy as lifting a finger. There's no need to thank me. White Cat State Zero glanced at Lei Mingkai and continued. Princess Athyllem, with the current situation, I'm afraid you can no longer survive on this planet. Athyllem nodded silently. What White Cat State Zero said was the truth. Although they could still breathe freely in the ruins, without the help of the ELDNOH reactor, the suitable climate on this land would quickly disappear, and it would once again return to the dead planet that had never been colonized by humans. Captain Knight, what is the situation in Avalon now? Not really. Even if in a short period of time, just when Lei Mingkai wanted to talk about Avalon's current predicament, a surprise suddenly fell from the sky. Captain Knight, please answer if you hear me. Please answer if you hear me. What's the matter? What happened? Teresa's anxious voice came from the communication channel, but it was also filled with joy. Yes, Captain Knight, we're saved. Avalon's damage can be repaired in a short period of time. Teresa's tone was very fast. Did you find the key material? Lei Mingkai was stunned and then asked. Little did he know, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in the communication channel. It seems that when we were chasing the enemy, Sir Lei Mingkai actually made such a big move. What a surprise. Captain Hudson. The owner of this voice was Hudson S. William, who had been separated from Lei Mingkai for a long time, and was also the captain of Macross Windchime. His arrival undoubtedly represented the arrival of strong and powerful support. Lei Mingkai still remembered that Maple Bell of Macross Windchime came from the mental core of the Azure world. It's me. We already know about Sir Lei Mingkai's current situation. Please wait for a moment. Macross Windchime has entered the range of Mars and will land in the area where Avalon is in half an hour. Please be prepared. Hudson's words made Lei Mingkai slightly relieved. Although Lei Mingkai did not know why Hudson and his Windchime appeared in this world so coincidentally, it made Lei Mingkai and Avalon's situation relieved. Captain Knight, has the problem been solved? Ethel Lamb looked at Ray Minkai's surprised and relieved expression and couldn't help but ask. That's right. Although it was a bit troublesome, we finally don't need to struggle in this predicament. Half an hour later, after returning to Avalon and placing Angela in the medical chamber, Ethel Lamb once again came to the bridge of Avalon. Now was the time for Avalon to welcome the arrival of allies who came to support them. At this moment, Mars ushered in the first rays of the morning sun. As the sunlight shone down, a small black silently appeared above the 9 heavens. As the height of this small black dot increased, Ethel Lamb also saw the layer of steel armor that seemed to be plated with a layer of gold under the refraction of the sun. It was a battleship that Ethel Lamb had never seen before. Its shape was something that Ethel Lamb had never seen or imagined before. Huge and mighty. Looking from the bottom up, Ethel Lamb felt like she was looking up at the legendary Titan. That's Macross Windchime. Princess Ethel Lamb. Ray Minkai stood next to Ethel Lamb and introduced softly. Macross Windchime? This word that she had never heard before made Ethel Lamb frown slightly. The word Macross was undoubtedly a new word for Ethel Lamb, so she did not understand the meaning of this word. She was just amazed by the huge battleship that gradually landed next to Avalon. Height 100, maintain the balance of the battleship. Confirm that the connection signal with Avalon is correct. Release the nano-insect swarm and begin emergency repair and replenishment of Avalon. In the bridge of the Macross Windchime, the mental core, Maple Bell, immediately threw herself into the work of supporting Avalon. Hudson, who was sitting in the captain's seat, raised his hand to adjust his hat, stood up, and said to the people on the bridge, I'll leave the matters here to you. I'll go meet with Mr. Ray Minkai first and exchange information. Yes. In fact, Ray Minkai had the same intention. The place where the two parties met happened to be in a conference room on Avalon. However, after Hudson looked around, he found that a key person was missing. Her Majesty Euphemia is not feeling well and can't meet others for the time being. I'm sorry, Captain Hudson. Ray Minkai saw Hudson's doubts at a glance. Is that so? What a pity. I wanted to thank Her Majesty Euphemia. Hudson met Ray Minkai's puzzled gaze and showed a self-deprecating smile. It's a bit embarrassing to talk about. When we were chasing the enemy, we were unexpectedly ambushed by the enemy. At the most difficult time, Avalon appeared in time and rescued us from the ambush. Ray Minkai was taken aback and turned to look at Royd, who just came into the conference room. Dr. Royd, there's such a thing in Avalon? Who knew that Dr. Royd smiled bitterly, scratched his head, and told the truth. It was just an accident. Originally, according to the route plan, when Avalon left the port, Avalon would not have encountered the Macross Windchime. But I don't know if it was because the staff of Avalon were not mature enough, or because it encountered a small accident. But in a baffling way, it accidentally broke into the battle zone of Macross. Was it by accident? After Ray Minkai listened to Royd's explanation, he shook his head helplessly. It seems that this accident really happened by coincidence. That's true. It was because of this accident that everyone on Macross was spared from a disaster. Here, on behalf of all the members of Macross, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Her Majesty Euphemia, His Excellency Ray Minkai, and Dr. Royd. With that, Hudson saluted on the spot, and Ray Minkai returned the salute with the same posture. Okay, if you want to thank me, save it for later. Hudson, was the enemy you were talking about Miss Q? No. Hudson shook his head. The target of the Windchime's mission is MRJ. When we parted ways with Mr. Ray Minkai, we caught sight of Mr. J's tracks. When we were about to successfully catch the tail of this little mouse, we didn't expect to fall into his trap. Mr. J? Now that I think about it, I also encountered MRJ in the previous world. It was just that we had a few face-to-face encounters. I didn't have a chance to fight him at all. Ray Minkai recalled his experience in the metal world and realized that he had never had a direct confrontation with Mr. J, from the beginning to the end. Is that so? If that's the case, then His Excellency Ray Minkai is lucky. Trust me, His Excellency Ray Minkai, if you encounter MRJ again in the future, please don't rashly clash with him alone. Otherwise, it will be a disaster. What? MR.J is very strong? Hudson's seriousness made Ray Minkai feel incredulous. Could it be that a Macross, which was a combination of Songlan's mind and the latest cutting-edge technology, was unable to fight against him? Hudson took a deep breath and revealed the secret that was hidden by the Space Administration. Yes, 10 years ago, when MR.J first appeared in front of the Space Administration, he single-handedly destroyed one of the Space Administration's subfleets. What? One of the subfleets? Ray Minkai sucked in a breath of cold air. According to the size of the Space Administration's fleet, one of the subfleets consisted of at least one Macross, 2 aircraft carriers, and 4 frigates. Among them, this subfleet had nearly 1,000 carrier-based aircraft of various types. With such a huge force, MR.J actually single-handedly destroyed one of the subfleets. This kind of strength, wasn't it too? Now you should know how lucky you are, right? Hudson's words made Ray Minkai grin. Captain Hudson, aren't you the same? The other party clearly had the strength to destroy one of the subfleets, but you rushed up with them across and clashed with them. Ahem. That was a moment of carelessness. Hudson was choked by Ray Minkai's words. I originally only planned to follow them from afar, but I didn't expect them to discover us first. Fortunately, our luck isn't too bad. That's true. Ahem. All right, let's end the matter regarding MR.J. Winchim's mission is now over. What's the next plan for Avalon? Hudson waited for Ray Minkai to continue. With MR.J.'s disappearance, Winchim's mission could only end in failure. The next mission was nothing more than to provide assistance to Avalon and assist them in the next step. At this point, just by looking at Hudson's eyes, Ray Minkai already understood. Without a doubt, this was a timely rain. Next, I'm afraid it's the fastest way to repair Avalon and restore the ability to space jump and hyperspace travel. This point, after Winchim's arrival, can be said to have been completely resolved. The rest, I'm afraid, can only depend on Princess Islam's thoughts. Ray Minkai estimated the current situation and determined that the factors that could cause trouble for Avalon no longer existed. Princess Islam? Is it the blonde princess in the white dress? Hudson thought for a moment, then laughed out loud. As expected of a night inspector. Hudson's words made Ray Minkai speechless. For a moment, he didn't know whether to accept or not. Fortunately, Cecil, who appeared in time, allowed Ray Minkai to escape. Captain Knight, Captain Hudson, Avalon's repair work is now 70% complete. Captain Teresa, please go to the bridge to confirm the situation. Yes, Captain Hudson, please. Please. After the sun rose and set 3 times in the sky above Mars, under the repair of the nano-insect swarm from across Winchim, Avalon was finally renewed and restored to its original state. The system is back online, initiating pre-launch self-check. The energy circuit connection is normal. The reaction furnace output is normal. The light-wing thruster self-check is normal. The weapon system is back online. In the renewed bridge, everyone's morale was high as they carried out the final preparations for takeoff. Thank you very much, Captain Hudson and the lovely Feng Ling. After looking around the bridge that was refurbished by the nano-insect swarm, Ray Minkai looked at the two on the main screen. You're welcome. Speaking of which, this is Avalon's first voyage. If we return in a battered state, that would be too ugly. Feng Ling waved her hand and said straightforwardly, that's true. Sir Ray Minkai, if possible, you'd better let Avalon have its own mental core. That way, even if it encounters the same situation again, it won't be so embarrassed. Hudson laughed and reached out to touch Feng Ling-er's head, then under the latter's disdainful gaze, he cut off the communication with Avalon. Mental core? That'll depend on luck. Ray Minkai smiled bitterly. As one of the most powerful forces in the Space Administration, the mental core was not something that anyone could have. Captain Knight, Avalon is ready to set sail. Please give your instructions. After summarizing everyone's reports, Teresa looked at Ray Minkai. Let's go. Captain Teresa, we should also go and finish up the final work. Then let's go home. Understood. Avalon, set sail. Chapter 492. The Windchime and Avalon lifted off from the ground of Mars one after the other. Under the illumination of the sun that gradually rose to the center of the sky, they gradually touched the edge of the planet. Macross Windchime, a huge space battleship. Inafane, do you know how this battleship was made? Netbun Yunko, whose right hand was bandaged and hung in front of her chest, looked at the huge space battleship outside the window and yelled. That was a space battleship with a length that could be calculated in kilometers. Even Deucalion of the Earth Alliance Army couldn't compare to it. I don't know. Although her hands and feet were much better than Netbun Yunko, Inafane, whose head was bandaged, shook her head and also looked at the space battleship outside the window. But what can be seen is that the battleship, like Deucalion, uses an anti-gravity engine. Otherwise, it would be impossible to escape from the gravity well with its huge body that is at least 1 kilometer long. Ugh, why does Inafane always say things that I don't understand? Obviously, Inafane's words could never make Netbun Yunko understand. In this regard, Inafane just nodded silently and continued to look at the Macross Windchime outside the window. Such a huge and unheard-of space battleship. As long as it appeared, it would inevitably attract all eyes. Especially now that it belonged to a faction, it became thought-provoking. Yo, two brats, how do you feel today? At this time, the energetic Juhu Koichiro stood at the door with a lunch in each hand. My condition is still okay. Captain Juhu, what about you? In that explosion, your body endured nearly 70% of the explosive power. Netbun Yunko's stomach was already hungry, but she still looked at Juhu Koichiro with concern, who seemed to be fine. Hey, thank you for your concern. I feel very good now. This is also thanks to Alpha's strength. After Juhu Koichiro put the lunch on the table next to him, he turned his head and looked out the window, looking at the space battleship like Inafane. Space battleship Macross Windchime. It's a very powerful space battleship. If it wants to, I'm afraid it could disintegrate the combat power of our Earth Alliance army within a day. Yubei Koichiro, whose eyes gradually became sharp, suddenly shrugged his shoulders and said in a seemingly relaxed manner, Ma, that was just a wild guess. Don't take it seriously. However, Jiamizuka Inafane acknowledged Yubei Koichiro's statement. No, Captain Juhu, I'm afraid you're being too conservative. As long as that ship is willing, with the strength of our Earth Alliance army, we can only last for half a day. With that, Hinafan turned around and calmly looked at Juhu Koichiro. Captain Juhu, maybe you haven't, but yesterday I saw with my own eyes how this Avalon was repaired by the nanoswarm. How can our Earth Alliance army fight against a force that can use black technology that even our Earth Alliance army only exists in theory? Jiamizuka Inafane's eyes were calm with a hint of seriousness, which made Juhu Koichiro not know how to answer for a while. Originally, he thought that this Avalon and the Lionheart Knight were already the most powerful weapons that Rei Minkai could bring out. But he didn't expect that there would be a huge space battleship that was more than 1 kilometer long. In this way, Juhu Koichiro couldn't help but worry about those people at the Earth Alliance Army headquarters, because he knew that from the moment this Avalon set off to crusade against Mars, the Earth Alliance Army would definitely use all their forces to pay attention to the situation on Mars. Therefore, on the day the Weiss Empire blew up, Earth might have already discovered some clues. I hope that group of generals won't be impulsive. Juhu Koichiro touched the back of his head and looked out the window at the void that had become dark. We should sit tight. The space transition is about to begin. On the bridge, except for Euphemia, who was still in a coma, everyone was present. Brother, are we going home? Mira, who had been in the laboratory, came to the bridge. As long as the final finishing work is done, we will go home. Mira. Rei Minkai nodded slightly and reached out to pat Myra's little head. Sitting on the side, Ethel Lamb, who was silently contemplating, suddenly looked up at Rei Minkai. Knight, after you solve the matters on Earth, Are you going to leave here? Here. Ethellam's choice of words was very subtle. Ray Minkai didn't know where Ethellam meant by here. But considering that Ethellam had in fact contacted Miss Q and Reynold, Ray Minkai wouldn't do anything to fool Ethellam. Especially now, the Weiss Empire was in a state of destruction. Well, yes, our home is not here on Earth. Therefore, after we solve the matters here, we will leave here. After a pause, Ray Minkai showed a comforting smile. Princess Ethellam, please rest assured, before we leave, we will take care of the matters of the Weiss Empire. It will not affect your future life, and it will not cause any trouble to the Weiss Empire's future life. We have full confidence in accomplishing this task. But Ray Minkai's assurance didn't make Ethellam feel relieved. After witnessing Raymurina blow up the entire city with her own hands and cradling the only surviving infant in her arms, Ethellam's gaze had already begun to look far into the future. Now, the Weiss Empire, which had a population of nearly 1 million, only had a few tens of thousands of people left on the moon base after the Battle of the capital city. Even if they still had black technology like the ALDNOH reactor, after 15 years of recuperation, the population had recovered to nearly 1 billion people. It was only a matter of time before they were destroyed. Even if Ethellam still carried out her original idea in the future and made friends with the Earth Alliance Army, under the secret operation of the Earth Alliance Army, the Weiss Empire, which only had tens of thousands of people left, would gradually be exhausted. And she, who had the bloodline to start the ALDNOH reactor, might become an experimental subject secretly raised by the Earth Alliance Army. This wasn't Ethellam's own imagination. After witnessing the terrible things with her own eyes, Ethellam, who was devastated, couldn't help but think about the future of the Weiss Empire. Without the powerful Weiss Empire as a backing, the moon base couldn't guarantee its own safety. This was not only for herself, but also for the tens of thousands of Weiss citizens left on the moon base. Knight Captain, I don't know if I could tell you where to live. After everything is stabilized, I hope to personally thank you. After thinking about the question in her mind for a few times, it always changed when she said it out loud. Ray Minkai looked at Ethellam, who wanted to say something, and sighed in his heart. If only Euphemia wasn't in a coma now, this would be the best time for the current queen of the Britannia Empire to come forward. If he, as the Knight Captain, came forward, it would be a bit difficult. Princess Ethellam, thank you very much for your kindness. It's just that our home is a bit far from here. In an instant, the two sides were in a stalemate. The silence made Teresa turn around and ask Ray Minkai if he needed her help. Seeing this, Ray Minkai could only shake his head and tell Teresa to ignore it. Even if the Weiss Empire was destroyed at this moment, Ethellam was still the first princess of the Weiss Empire. On this issue, either Queen Euphemia spoke up, or Ethellam spoke up herself. There was no other choice. Ray Minkai didn't want to spend a lot of effort to bring these tens of thousands of people back, but he didn't want to plant a time bomb at home. This was the most dangerous part. The silence between the two sides didn't last long. After the short space, jump ended. When the familiar blue planet and the silver planet that had lost half of its body and scattered a ring in the Earth-Moon orbit appeared in front of them, Avalon once again returned to the Earth's orbit. At this moment, countless communication signals madly rushed toward Avalon. Captain, we received communication signals from the moon base, Deucalion, and the headquarters of the Earth Alliance Army. Please advise. Hearing this, Teresa looked at Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai, on the other hand, made his decision after taking a glance at Ethellam. Let's connect to the moon base first. But before Teresa could answer, Ethellam suddenly stood up and said seriously, "You're right, I'm not going to give you a chance. Captain Knight, Captain Teresa, I want to be able to talk to the moon base in a separate space. Is that okay?" Ray Minkai and Teresa looked at each other in surprise. Yes. Captain Teresa, you can arrange it. Understood. Princess Ethellam, you can go back to your room and contact the moon base. We will transfer the communication. Thank you very much. Looking at Ethellam's back that seemed to have made up her mind, Teresa frowned a little. Captain Knight, Princess Islam should have already made up her mind. It's just that I don't know which decision she made. Maybe. However, this is the choice that Ethelem made. Ray Minkai waved his hand, then looked at Teresa and said with a hint of apology, "Sorry, Captain Teresa. I failed to bring Reynold back." "No, Captain Knight, you don't need to apologize. At least, I already know that if I continue to follow this ship, Reynold will appear in front of me sooner or later. At that time, I'll have to rely on you. Captain Knight." Teresa smiled softly and didn't care about what happened before. "Oh, leave it to me, Captain Teresa." On the other side, Ethel Lamb, who returned to her room, sent Idalizo away, locked the door, and sat silently in a chair for a moment before pressing the communication button. With a flash of light, a projection screen appeared in front of her. "Your Highness Princess Ethelem, is that you?" It was Countess Firmian who appeared on the screen. The Countess's face was anxious and nervous. Ethel Lamb quietly looked at the Countess' face and spoke softly. "It's me, Count Firmian." As soon as Ethel Lamb spoke, the Countess suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. "Is it you?" "Her Royal Highness Princess Ethelem." "You're okay, that's great. Right? What happened in Vice Homeland?" All communications were cut off. Even from the Earth Alliance Army's communication, we saw a huge crater on the mainland. Firmian had just breathed a sigh of relief, but her anxious tone immediately made Ethellam's heart sink. Yes. It's a pity. Count Firmian, Weiser's mainland has been destroyed. In the Battle of the Capital, my sister, Remurina, detonated the hyperspace door, causing the entire capital and all the people in the mainland to die in that disaster. What? The sorrowful tone of Ethel Lamb and the fact that she was telling the truth made Firmian, as well as the entire command center on the moon base, panic. Weiser's mainland was destroyed without them knowing. The culprit of the destruction of the capital turned out to be the illegitimate child of the Weiser royal family, Remurina, who was hidden by Count Zasbrum. This fact was unacceptable to all the Weiser people. However, no matter how unacceptable it was, this was the truth. Looking at the panicked crowd on the screen, Ethellam's expression gradually calmed down. Then, her voice gradually became louder. "Calm down, people of Weiser. The Weiser Empire has not been destroyed yet. Ethellam Weiser Elucia, the only bloodline of the Weiser royal family, still exists. You, as the important cornerstone of the Weiser Empire, are still alive. So please don't panic. Don't despair." Ethellam's voice calmed the panicking citizens of Vice. Amidst the chaos, Firmian was keenly aware of what Ethellam was about to announce. "Now we're desperate, but behind this despair, there is hope. Angela, I found her in the ruins of the royal city. She is the only surviving life in Weiser's mainland, a baby who is not yet a year old. She had survived the devastating explosion, so we can't despair. Otherwise, when Angela grows up, our retreat today will be Angela's mockery tomorrow. Your Highness Princess Ethellam, please tell us what we should do." Firmian understood Ethellam's words at this moment. Therefore, after Aesilim finished speaking, she immediately continued to speak, not allowing anyone to have any time to think. "Now, in the name of the Weiser Empire's queen, I announce that all the remaining Weiser people pack your luggage and take care of everything in the moon base. Then, we will go to the New World." Since then, the Weiser Empire had become a vassal state of the Britannia Empire. Chapter 493. Deucalion. The battleship that was redesigned by the Earth Alliance Army by transplanting Deucalion from the Weiser Armored Cavalry was quietly parked in the dock. This was the dock of the Earth Alliance headquarters, and it was also the final resting place of the battleship Deucalion. The newly activated Deucalion was once again sealed into hibernation. It was not because Deucalion suffered irreparable damage, nor was it because it was time for Deucalion to retire. It was because Deucalion's heart, the heart that originated from the Weiser Armored Cavalry Deucalion, was about to meet its fate of stopping. What time is it now? I don't know. Standing in the dock's control center, Darzana's eyes were very calm. Even though she had just taken up her post and was about to step down, Darzana didn't feel that it was a pity that she was about to face the same fate as Deucalion, because she knew that with the stop of Deucalion's heart, the war would finally come to an end. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. There are still 5 minutes until the last communication. Sorokin stood straight. She was the same as Darzana. When Deucalion retired, they were also transferred from frontline positions to logistics positions as instructors of the Military Command Academy. Of course, as a consolation, their military ranks were naturally promoted. 5 minutes? This may be our last chance to see the scenery here. I don't know. Have you decided what to do next? Darzana sighed inwardly. The war was really over. I haven't thought about it yet. But according to Brother Jiezhong, the mysterious world seems to be very good. Sorokin was silent for a moment, and then threw out a very tempting idea. Do you believe Brother Jiezhong's words? Darzana was taken aback and subconsciously asked. Oh no. Unknown, mysterious. They're the source of the development of human society. To experience the culture, life, customs, and even the basic technological knowledge of developing civilization is undoubtedly a fatal temptation for the humans on this planet. Sorokin's words made sense, but Darzana frowned. I don't know. Did anyone tell you why people don't like you? Really? I personally think that being considerate would add a lot of points to one's image. You're talking nonsense. 5 minutes passed very quickly. As a radio wave was transmitted from the void, the fate of the warship Deucalion had also arrived at the moment of decision. This is Avalon. Earth Alliance headquarters. Please respond. The reporter glanced at Darzana and handed her the headset. This is Earth's United Headquarters. I am Darzana. Avalon, please speak. Hello, Captain Darzana. I am Captain Teresa of Avalon. From now on, Avalon and the Windchime will enter hyperspace travel. At that time, due to the special state of hyperspace travel, unpredictable situations may occur in Deucalion, which you belong to. May I ask if you have made the necessary preparations? Especially in the harsh environment of the Abyss, where backup may be cut off at any time, it is important to have a complete material reserve. Therefore, in order to achieve this goal, every new battleship is equipped with different specifications of space technology. Hudson nodded and introduced the space technology of the Windchime to Ray Minkai. Is that so? It seems that Avalon is just a battleship that has just started. The gap between it and the Windchime is too big. From the outside, the Windchime looked no different from the Macross that Ray Minkai was familiar with, but the inside was beyond Ray Minkai's imagination. Because from the inside of the Windchime, it was not Macross at all. Mr. Ray Minkai, you don't have to belittle yourself. Every inspector of the Space Administration will eventually have a battleship as powerful as the Windchime. No, even more powerful. After all, compared to us who stay on the front line of the Abyss, the inspectors are the warriors who go deep into the Abyss and launch a fatal blow to the weakness of the Abyss. You're right. This was the memory of how they took away the tens of thousands of people on the moon base. Now, everyone on the moon base had been arranged. All that was left was to enter the hyperspace channel and return to the City of Stars. Princess Ethelum, please sit tight. We're about to depart. Teresa motioned for Ethelum to sit down. Thank you very much for your kindness. Captain Teresa. After Ethelum thanked her, she subconsciously looked at the guest's seat on Teresa's left. There was no one there. Excuse me, is the Knight Captain busy with other things now? Teresa was slightly taken aback, then smiled and said, Yes, the Knight Captain is now accompanying Her Majesty Euphemia. So, he didn't come to the bridge. Her Majesty Euphemia? Only then did Ethelum remember that Euphemia seemed to have not appeared for a while after the battle in the capital due to health reasons. Yes, Her Majesty Euphemia is now ill and is resting. So, other than the Knight Captain and necessary medical staff, she doesn't want to see anyone else. I hope Princess Ethelum can understand this. In addition, Her Majesty and the Knight Captain also said that after returning to the City of Stars, they will hold a grand welcoming party for Princess Ethelum and your people. Teresa's explanation made Ethelum frown slightly, but she did not say anything and chose to accept it. I got it. Then, I will give Her Majesty Euphemia and Knight Captain Ray Minkai at the welcoming party to thank Her Majesty and the Knight Captain for opening a new world for Weiss. A small confrontation came to an end. The moment this small confrontation ended, it was time to enter the hyperspace tunnel. Colorful rays of light. The dreamy flowers of light that did not seem to exist in the world were the symbols of Avalon and the wind chime entering the hyperspace channel. Through the real-time satellite connection, everyone at the Earth Joint Headquarters was shocked by the two flowers of light blooming in the orbit of the Earth and the Moon, especially when they learned that Avalon and the wind chime were about to enter the hyperspace channel. The scientists at the Earth Joint Headquarters tried their best to gather were so shocked that they forgot the work in their hands. It was not until one of them unconsciously moved his gaze to the screen that did not read a single byte of data that they were awakened by the exclamation, "Impossible! No data! How was it possible?" All the satellites responsible for monitoring the hyperspace channel did not read any data at all. How was it possible? Is this a dream? Dream. The two flowers of light that bloomed as Avalon and the wind chime completely disappeared from this world were in the orbit of the Earth and the Moon, announcing to the humans of this world that there was a more wonderful world beyond this vast and boundless universe. However, the current humans could not even rely on the power they created to truly colonize the stars. They really made a fool out of us. Darzana looked at the two flowers of light on the screen and smiled slightly. However, this is a very good result. I don't know why. If there's a chance, would you like to go to that world with me? I'd be happy to accompany you. Captain, no matter how incredible the hyperspace travel was in the eyes of the Earth Joint Headquarters, as someone who had experienced it, Jiamount and Nathan felt that it was normal. This is the bridge. Avalon has now entered the hyperspace channel. The hyperspace engine is operating normally. Everyone is to remove the alert state. At the same time as the broadcast from the bridge sounded, all the people who had tied themselves to safety chairs before the hyperspace travel began unfasten their seatbelts and left the safe zone in groups of 2 or 3. Among these people, Jiamount and Nathan and his sister, Jiamount Shui, were also among them. Sister Shui, you don't have to come with me, do you? It's not like I'm not coming back. After deftly unfastening his seatbelt, Jiamount and Nathan naturally reached out to help his sister unfasten her seatbelt. Ah, thank you. And Nathan, Jiamount Shui, who was first troubled by the seatbelt and then rescued by Jiamount and Nathan, was furious when she heard her brother's indifferent words. She raised her hand and went straight to Jiamount and Nathan's forehead. Stupid brother, we are siblings. How can an elder sister let her brother go to another strange world? Besides, how do I know if those people will lie to you? Jiamount and Nathan touched his forehead that had turned red and said calmly, "No, that is not a lie. When I was on Avalon, I compared it through various sources. Although the language they use looks the same as ours, there are some subtle differences. In particular, the star map stored on this battleship is different from what we have collected." While talking, Jiamount and Nathan saw his sister's expression gradually become dissatisfied and subconsciously changed the topic. Speaking of which, is there really no problem with the Earth Alliance army? Strictly speaking, Sister Shui, you are now a deserter. Pa, Jiamount Shui unceremoniously knocked Jiamount and Nathan's forehead. Idiot. If I am a deserter, then so are you and Nathan. After receiving my retirement application, the headquarters approved my retirement almost instantly, and so did yours. Is that so? Yes. After all, joining the Earth Alliance Army is also to improve our family's life. Looking at his sister's calculating expression, Jiamount and Nathan smiled slightly. Thank you, Sister Shui. Stupid brother. Outside the door, Juhu Koichiro slowly breathed a sigh of relief. This pair of siblings is really worrisome. This shows that their relationship is very deep, doesn't it? Next to him, Cecil slightly closed her hands with a touch of emotion on her face. That's true. But then again, Mr. Juhu, is your retirement also the same? Royd looked at Juhu Koichiro. Yes. Maybe it's because my reputation as an alcoholic is too bad. Before I could apply, they kicked me out of the army. But this is good. Is that so? Then, welcome to our Britannia Empire. Your Excellency, Juhu Koichiro. Chapter 494. City of Stars. The appearance of this gigantic planetary city in the void attracted the attention of everyone for Vice. No exclamations. No exclamations. There's only a silent atmosphere and a burning gaze hidden behind this atmosphere. The huge artificial dome, the colorful indicator lights, and the faintly discernible city hidden behind the transparent dome completely subverted everyone's imagination. Under this city that subverted their imagination, there was an endless stream of spaceships and battleships from all over the universe. The spaceships of different sizes and shapes almost dazzled the eyes of Vice and the others. Is this the world of Her Majesty Euphemia and Captain Knight? The shock on Athylem's face was particularly obvious. There was no doubt that she was shocked by the scene in front of her that subverted her imagination. Also, Teresa was also shocked by the huge cosmic city in front of her. Teresa, who came on the ship slightly earlier than Athylem, also didn't expect there to be such an incredible city that subverted her imagination. This is the City of Stars of the Space Administration. Captain Teresa, Princess Athylem, the Britannia Empire can only arrive through this cosmic city. Transit station, this cosmic city, the little maid, Adelizo, exclaimed. It seemed that the little maid's impression of the transit station, combined with the result of this incredible cosmic city in front of her, made the little maid incredulous. No, the transit station is only one of the functions of the City of Stars. The City of Stars is a cosmic city that encompasses trade, military, technology, transportation, medical, and other aspects of the universe. On it, you can find almost everything you want. Of course, the premise is that you can pay the price. In Ray Minkai's introduction, with the Macross Windchime leading the way, the small team behind Avalon gradually sailed into the port of the City of Stars along the temporary route assigned to them. We're finally home. Your Excellency Ray Minkai, I need to go to the administration to submit a report. If there's time, let's have a drink together. When Avalon and the Windchime were completely docked at the harbor, Hudson sent a message. Ray Minkai wanted to accept Hudson's invitation, but he didn't expect that someone was already waiting for his return at the port. I'm the acting assistant director of the Space Administration, Will. Inspector Ray Minkai, please follow me. Now, I have something to confirm with you. Unexpectedly, the one waiting for Ray Minkai was an iceberg-like beauty in a black suit. Moreover, the slightly protruding pointy ears from her scattered golden hair also announced the identity of this cold beauty in black. Alien race. Elves? Teresa muttered softly, but her eyes were filled with curiosity. The miraculous nature of Star Glory City had already made Teresa gasp in amazement. If another legendary item appeared, Teresa probably wouldn't be surprised. She might even be more curious. Who knows? Ray Minkai shrugged, indicating that he didn't know. After all, the mystery of Star Glory City couldn't be clearly explained by someone who had just come out from a new level. Then, Captain Teresa, Her Royal Highness Princess Isilaram, and Judo Koichiro, I'll leave the siblings to you. Dr. Royd, Miss Sayer. Yes. Captain Knight, please rest assured and go to the administration. Leave it all to us. After saying goodbye to everyone, Ray Minkai didn't go to the administration alone. Just like when he first came to Star Glory City, he took the medical chamber where Euphemia was and boarded the car sent by the administration. We received news of Her Majesty Euphemia's condition 12 hours ago. The doctors from the Ministry of Justice have begun preparations to treat Her Majesty Euphemia. Next, Your Excellency Ray Minkai, you need to go to the director's office to report on this mission. The iceberg beauty didn't say much. After explaining the reason for this mission, she ended the topic and returned to her original state. She didn't give Ray Minkai a chance to ask about the current situation of the administration. In this silent, cold wind, Ray Minkai came to the administration in torment and personally sent Euphemia to Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice. Should this be described as unfortunate or as a bumpy fate? Rei Mingkai, I didn't expect your Empress to come here again in this form. Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice was still wearing a white coat and still holding a chocolate bar in her hand, but the words in her mouth made Rei Mingkai speechless. Forget it. Put it over there. I heard that when Euphemia was in a coma, she once said something that sounded familiar to you. Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice raised her hand and asked the assistant next to her to push Euphemia's medical chamber to the center of the room. Then she looked at Rei Mingkai and asked, "Let me answer this question. Kai, maybe I can't explain it clearly." The person who answered Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice's question was, well, a cat. Moreover, Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice wasn't unfamiliar with this cat. After all, when Rei Mingkai was playing Steel Pulla, the sleeping white cat was studied by Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice for a long time. State 0? Can you tell me what's going on? Could it be that it's caused by the fragments that were scattered everywhere? Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice glanced at Rei Mingkai's shoulder. The white cat State 0 really appeared there. It's indeed caused by the fragments. The white cat State 0 straightened its body and showed the pendant hanging on its neck in front of Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice. This is the fragment? It materialized? The fragment in front of Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice was an object that looked like a gem. If it wasn't for the white cat State 0 saying that it was a fragment, Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice would have subconsciously treated it as an ordinary gem. Yes, it wasn't originally like this, but after Kai's illusion, this fragment materialized. No matter what, I would like to borrow the equipment here. Doctor of the Ministry of Justice, I would also like to borrow the equipment here to look for it. Why would Euphemia say that she wouldn't have come into contact with it and wouldn't know about it? I'm counting on you. Rei Mingkai reached out and took the pendant from the white cat State 0's neck and handed it to Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice. Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice took the pendant and sized it up. Looks like this is the first time we found a fragment that could materialize. Leave it to me. I have no less questions about this fragment than you. I'm counting on you. Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice smiled lightly and said as if she understood. Don't worry. I'll wake up your Empress as soon as possible. Moreover, after seeing this fragment, I have some guesses. Perhaps Empress Euphemia won't be in a coma for a long time like last time. Speaking till here, Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice glanced at Rei Mingkai again. Otherwise, not to mention the Britannia Empire, even you, the Empress Knight Captain, won't be able to bear it. All right, now, you should go and meet the acting director. His little secretary can't wait any longer. Outside the door, the Ice Beauty was still there, silently waiting for Rei Mingkai to finish his business. Seeing this, Rei Mingkai could only bid farewell to Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice and ask her to take care of Euphemia. Then, he followed behind the Ice Beauty and once again arrived at the director's office. As expected, the person in the director's office was still Reza Beryl. However, compared to the first time they met, the current acting director was already buried in 2 small mountains of documents. Acting Director, Patrol Officer Rei Mingkai has arrived. Next is an hour of guest meeting time. Please make full use of this time. There are still 2/3 of the priority documents for today. Acting Director, please make the appropriate arrangements. Unexpectedly, when the Iceberg Beauty entered the director's office, her whole person's aura suddenly became fierce. Not to mention Rei, who was buried in documents. Even the bystander Rei Mingkai felt a terrible pressure. Is this the aura that a little secretary should have? I know. Can I trouble you to make 2 cups of coffee? Will, as you command. Then, forgive me for taking my leave. The Ice Beauty bowed and quickly left the room. After her footsteps disappeared outside the door, Rei sighed helplessly. Rei Mingkai, come and give me a hand. The elegant, blonde, noble son of the past had now become a man buried in a mountain of documents, with black eyes and a very sorry state. With such a huge difference, Rei Mingkai couldn't help but think about what had happened to the acting director of the Space Administration during the time he was away. Thank you very much. I'm a bit sorry now. I'm very sorry. Please sit down. Ray Minkai. Ray patted the corner of his clothes, threw the documents stuck to his body to the side, and took the lead to sit on the sofa. Seeing this, Ray Minkai did not say anything. It seems that the changes during this time had completely destroyed the image of the blonde, noble son of Ray. Don't call me acting director. Now, I have a lingering fear of this title. Just call me by my name, Ray Minkai. Without waiting for Ray Minkai to speak, Ray reminded him. Ray Minkai was puzzled at first, but after thinking about the Ice Beauty's behavior, he seemed to understand something. Ray, that secretary is new? Hearing this, Ray first sighed, then smiled bitterly. You also know that my position as acting director is only temporary. Especially in the face of a huge amount of documents to deal with, I'm more and more powerless. So, at a certain opportunity, I asked the director for a change. But I never thought. At this point, Ray sighed deeply again. The result, needless to say, was known. Over there, the legendary director sent the Ice Beauty to Ray's side, as the name implies, to help deal with work problems. However, Ray Minkai's gaze passed over Ray's shoulder and landed on the two piles of documents. And it didn't seem to have any effect. Ring, 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 the doorbell rang. At the same time, Ray Minkai also keenly noticed that Ray's shoulder trembled a few times when the doorbell rang. This was a phenomenon that would only happen under extreme fear, right? Acting Director, Your Excellency Inspector, the coffee has been delivered. Please enjoy. The Ice Beauty put the coffee on the table one by one, and when she was about to leave, she suddenly looked at Ray. Acting Director, please pay attention to the time. It's been 10 minutes since the reception time. I got it. From now on, I need a quiet environment. Ray said forcefully. Understood. Then, before the reception time is over, I won't let anyone disturb the acting director. The door closed. Ray was also visibly relieved. What a disaster. Ray Minkai picked up the cup and took a sip. And the taste is not bad. Disaster. I don't understand why the director asked where to come over. This is worse than the previous situation. Ray let out a long sigh and then waved his hand. Okay, let's not talk about these things. Let's talk about your mission this time. From the Windsheem's report, you encountered 2 or more destiny counselors this time. When it came to business, Ray Minkai nodded slowly. Yes, one of them is called Mississippi Q. According to the White Cat State Zero's information, she is very likely to be the culprit that destroyed my original world. The other one was Mr. J. The information is unclear. Many of the encounters were with the underlings controlled by her. Mississippi Q? She's already an old acquaintance. But Mr. J, I have to say, you guys are as lucky as the Windsheem's report. Ray picked up his cup, slowly took a sip of coffee, raised his left hand in the air, and pointed at the projection screen floating in the air. I'm sure you've already heard about Mr. J from Captain Hudson. But now, there's another piece of new information for him. 30 hours ago, in a world close to the abyss, an unknown energy wave suddenly erupted, causing that world to disappear from the universe star map in the blink of an eye. According to the analysis of the residual energy at that time, the culprit that caused this disaster that destroyed the entire world is very likely to be Mr. J. Destroyed the entire world? Ray Minkai was shocked. Mississippi Q, Mr. J. Why do these people seem like they're playing, destroying the world all day long? What's their purpose? Ray took another sip of coffee and looked at Ray Minkai through the rising white fog. Are you trying to guess the purpose of those people? Ray Minkai nodded slowly. No matter what, Ray Minkai was the first victim of the trouble caused by Mississippi Q, Mr. J. Whether it's purely to destroy the world for fun, or there's something hidden behind the destruction of the world, these people are our enemies to the Space Administration. As he spoke, Ray put down the cup in his hand, took out a business card from under the table, and handed it to Ray Minkai. I already know about Her Majesty Euphemia's matter. The Ministry of Justice's doctor is also handling it. But other than that, I may be able to introduce you to another expert. In terms of spiritual awareness, she's second to none in the administration. Chapter 495. The Caribbean Sea, a mysterious sea with countless legends. When Ray Minkai was young, he learned about the story of this mysterious sea through many movies and TV shows. But that was a long time ago. Now, Ray Minkai's goal in coming to this sea was not to travel on this mysterious sea, but to cross this sea and go to the Guyana Plateau. At the same time, Princess Iceland from Weiss was also traveling with him. Over the past few days in Star Glory City, Ephraim had gained some understanding of Star Glory City and even its central part, the Space Administration. Now, following Ray Minkai to the Guyana Plateau was also the suggestion of the Space Administration's acting director, Reza Barrel. 10 kilometers away from the target location, descend and remove the optical camouflage. 2 distinguished passengers. You might as well enjoy the beauty of the Caribbean Sea through the window next to you. Hearing the conversation from the cockpit, Aziram, who had been silent all this while, slightly moved its eyes. Obviously, this Iceland was also very interested in this mysterious sea. Your Highness Princess Ephraim, do you know about the Caribbean? Well, yes. The former Serene. Speaking of Serene, who had died in the explosion, Iceland couldn't help but pause for a moment, and a trace of sadness appeared on her face. After all, no matter what Serene did, he was always an important person who accompanied Iceland throughout her childhood. In a way, Serene could also be said to be Iceland's relative. Is that so? Iceland, please restrain your grief. I believe Serene wouldn't want to see your discouraged look now. Ray Minkai's mouth moved, and in the end, he just said this sentence. Thank you, Knight Captain. Now I feel much better. Ray Minkai didn't know whether the knot in Iceland's heart had been untied or not, and he didn't want to spend more effort to persuade Iceland. After all, Ray Minkai just wanted to find the person Ray mentioned as soon as possible and save Euphemia as soon as possible. Thus, the journey across the Caribbean Sea was spent in this silent atmosphere. The seemingly boundless Caribbean Sea still had an end. When a hint of verdant color appeared on the horizon where the sea and the sky were the same color, the journey across the sea had come to an end. 2 distinguished guests. Here we are. This is the entrance to the Guyana Plateau. The slender helicopter with smooth lines slowly landed on a landing platform built on the shore. In front of this landing platform, there was a huge rock wall about 100 meters high. It was so long that Ray Minkai couldn't see the end of it even after looking around several times. In the middle of this huge rock wall, there was a crack. It was as if some terrifying weapon had descended from the sky, ruthlessly splitting this huge rock wall into 2. A small path was born. Dense green vegetation extended from the landing platform all the way to the narrow path, as though it was a welcoming ceremony for Ray Minkai and Aziram to their destination. That's not right. It's a bit strange. Getting off the helicopter, White Cat Zero walked to the edge of the platform and squinted its eyes. It was too quiet. Among the dense vegetation, it was a paradise for small animals. No matter what time it was, there would always be various sounds in the dense vegetation, or the sound of small animals shuttling around in search of something, or perhaps it was the sound of insects chirping. But now, there was only the lonely sound of waves echoing back and forth in the air. Were they scared away by the helicopter's propellers? After Ray Minkai helped Aziram off the helicopter, he glanced around. No, that's not right. Even if they were scared away by the helicopter, there should be other sounds in the distance. But from here to the path, I can't hear a single sound. White Cat Zero's ears shook from time to time, as if it was listening to something. Lord Sacred Beast, did you hear anything? Beside the blue sea, the dense green forest, and the path that divided the huge rock wall into 2 has made Aziram feel a sense of mystery. No, the only sound here is the sound of waves. Kai, what should we do? White Cat Zero shook its head, turned around, and jumped on Ray Minkai's shoulder. Let's go. Princess Aziram. Without any doubts, Ray Minkai made a decision on the spot. So, under the slowly rising helicopter, Ray Minkai and Aziram, as well as the White Cat Zero lying on Ray Minkai's shoulder, left the platform and walked along the path to the entrance of the path. It's here. White Cat Zero raised its head, and its eyes looked into the depths of the path. Some sounds came from inside. Ray Minkai and Aziram looked at each other, then stepped into the path again and walked along the path all the way to the depths of the huge rock wall. No one knew how much time had passed. Ray Minkai only knew that as they walked deeper into the rock wall, the originally bright sunlight quietly dimmed. From the clearly visible roadside gravel, the grass could only see the shape of the middle of the path. The dimming light was not a big deal for Ray Minkai, but for Aziram, it was a bit troublesome. Princess Aziram, be careful. Ray Minkai lifted his foot and kicked away the larger stone in the middle of the path, then looked back at Aziram, who carefully lifted her skirt and walked. If Ray Minkai had known that this would happen, he would not have let a Thylum wear this long dress that was as simple as possible, but was still attached to some cumbersome etiquette that could be completely dropped. Sorry, if I had known, I would not have worn this dress. Aziram showed an apologetic smile. At the same time, she subconsciously raised her eyes and looked at the dimming, seemingly endless path in front of her. If she continued to walk like this, the long dress she was wearing would become very embarrassing. Suddenly, a sense of weightlessness hit her. Then, there was a blazing breath and a strong and powerful heartbeat. Sorry, please forgive my rudeness. Princess Aziram, now is not the time to waste. It turned out that Ray Minkai made this reckless choice in order to let Aziram safely pass through this path and walk out of this path as quickly as possible. However, Aziram did not care. Moreover, Aziram instinctively wrapped her hands around Ray Minkai's neck. No, Knight Captain, just do as you wish. I am also responsible for the current predicament. Sorry, Aziram. When Ray Minkai's voice fell, he had already rushed 10 meters away. In the blink of an eye, he and Aziram disappeared into the depths of the path. Without a doubt, the huge rock wall was a barrier that isolated the complicated, chaotic, and lustful world from the outside world. In the vast plateau, surrounded by the rock wall, there was a forest with countless strange flowers and plants and dense trees. The water flowing down from the mountains converged into rivers in the plateau, and even formed spectacular waterfalls where there was a difference in height. Every time the sun rose, when nocturnal creatures returned to their habitat, on both sides of the river, around the lakes formed by the waterfalls, there would always be all kinds of animals drinking water. However, the lively scene in the past had disappeared today. Not only the riverside, but also the surroundings of the lakes, even the forest that used to be filled with large and small figures, had become silent. It was as if no animals had ever existed in this forest. The bleak sound of wind wantonly traveled through the forest, becoming more and more rampant as it swept into the depths of the forest. However, just as the wind swept into the depths of the forest, it encountered an even fiercer and more terrifying gust of wind. Boom! It was a gust of wind that rumbled like the sound of cannons. The bleak wind that wantonly in the forest was torn apart by this gust of wind in an instant, and a large hole was blasted in the trees behind it. In the rumbling sound, broken branches flew all over the sky, and sand dragged innocent leaves in a frenzy in the air. Oh, girl, you've improved. In the billowing sand, a tall figure quietly appeared. At the same time, a slightly old but full of energy voice sounded. Hey, I've been training. Grandpa. On the other side of the billowing sand, a young girl in white training clothes with beautiful long black hair, tied up in a high ponytail, looked seriously into the depths of the sand. Is that so? Then, let me see the results of your training. Girl. Just as the old voice fell, the tall figure in the sand instantly disappeared. Here, almost in an instant, the high ponytail girl turned around abruptly, and at the same time, she threw her right fist behind her back. Boom! The sound of the wind suddenly exploded. However, there was no figure in front of her right fist, only trees that were blown down by the wind from the fist. Girl, you're careless. The old voice quietly sounded, but it had already come from behind. Little trick. The girl shouted loudly, and her slender right leg instantly twisted her waist and kicked out a whip kick behind her. Boom! Another explosion sounded. However, this time, it was a muffled sound that was unique to the body. Her slender left leg was blocked by the left arm that was so hard that it didn't seem like a human's body at all. Girl, are you hungry? No. Seeing that her whip kick didn't have the expected effect, the girl retracted her right leg and stepped forward and blasted out a fierce left punch. Bang! The girl's left punch was blocked again. The fierce wind from the fist even ignored the purple training clothes on the person in front of her, as if the girl's fist wind that could destroy boulders and trees was not worth mentioning at all to the person in front of her. This is a bit interesting. Girl, is that all you've got? If that's the case, then today's assessment will be considered as a failure. The man with long gray hair was tied into a long tie, and he had a small mustache. He looked to be in his 40s and smiled slightly. Of course not. This is just a warm-up. Grandpa. The girl suddenly exploded, and her slender right leg kicked out again. However, this whip kick was not to cause damage to the man in purple, but only to force him to retreat. Facing this whip kick, the man in purple just put his hands behind his back, and with a rise and fall, he pulled a distance away from the high ponytailed girl. The high ponytailed girl's spiritual power was raised to the extreme at this moment. As her spiritual power leaped to the extreme, a weak but unignorable light quietly lit up in her chest. Radiance sings my heart. It was a sacred whisper that only existed in myths. It was a sacred song that seemed to only appear in the legendary dream heaven. The moment this song sounded, the radiance of the sun in the sky suddenly dimmed. In the forest, a radiance that was more dazzling than the sun and more eye-catching rumbled. Stop here. Girl, there's a guest. However, at the moment when this radiance was about to bloom to its brightest, the man in purple actually let out a cold shout. Under the cold shout, the radiance suddenly dispersed, revealing the high ponytailed girl with a face full of confusion and completely lost. Guest. Yes. Guest. Girl, today's assessment will be postponed. You've worked hard today. The man in purple's figure flashed, and he stood beside the high ponytailed girl, patting the girl's head lovingly. What? I've been preparing for today's assessment for a long time. The girl was very dissatisfied, and her pouted little mouth already expressed her dissatisfaction. Ha ha ha, girl. Today's assessment will be counted together with the later ones. Don't worry. Really? Yes. Really. The man in purple nodded, and then looked to the left at the forest with a faint path. There's no movement? In the forest, a figure swayed, and a man and a woman appeared in front of them. However, when the man and woman appeared, the high ponytailed girl saw the appearance of the man and exclaimed, "Ray Minkai, why are you here?" The girl's exclamation immediately attracted the attention of the man and woman. You or he, Mimi? Why are you here? Aren't you preparing for the concert?" The man's exclamation made the girl hug her arms, and her eyes were full of scrutiny. "Grandpa, the guest you mentioned is him? Ray Minkai." And, yes, Ray sent a message not long ago, saying that he will come here for a visit. His purpose should be to find you. The man in purple nodded. His eyes were the same as the high ponytailed girl's, full of scrutiny. However, there was a trace of graveness hidden within his scrutinizing gaze. "Ray has already told me about you coming here. I'm Xiao Panzhou." Chapter 496. Xiao Panzhou. The man's self-proclaimed name made Ray Minkai's gaze freeze slightly. But before Ray Minkai could say anything about the name, the white cat on his shoulder, State 0, had already tensed up and its fur stood on end. "Kai, be careful. This man is dangerous." The arched body, the ferocious appearance of the sharp fangs and claws, was the current state of the white cat. But Ray Minkai did not take the white cat's warning to heart, because not only did he know that the white cat's warning was true, but he also knew that if the man in front of him wanted to make a move, even if he and the white cat used all their strength, they would not be able to cause any harm to the man in front of him. This was not because Ray Minkai was discouraged or because he wanted to diminish his own morale to boost the prestige of others. It was because the man in front of him indeed had such qualifications and strength. Glancing at Himimi, who was standing at the side with her arms crossed in front of her chest, Rei Minkai reached out and patted the white cat's fur. After smoothing out the fluffy fur on its body, he stepped forward, stood side by side, and saluted the man in purple. Rei Minkai greets Lord Invincible East. Oh! Rei Minkai's attitude made Himimi let out a cry of surprise. She did not expect Rei Minkai to guess the identity of the man in purple standing next to her, who was called Grandfather. The man in purple smiled, and then returned the salute to Rei Minkai with the same etiquette. I didn't expect anyone to remember the name I used before. You are indeed the world champion of the steel pulla competition. The man in purple, who was Invincible East, had just finished his words. Rei Minkai's expression changed slightly, but soon returned to normal. The steel pulla tournament he was talking about was probably the world tournament that Rei Minkai had participated in to become an inspector. Moreover, after recalling the dreamy match before the start of the tournament, Rei Minkai suddenly felt that Invincible East wasn't a shocking fact that he couldn't accept. My lord, did you watch the match as well? Yes. Grandpa went to see it with me. It's at the venue. Himimi nodded and admitted it. Yes. At the time, I watched the match under Doman's suggestion out of curiosity. I didn't expect that your performance would surprise me, especially that longbow. Longbow! This obvious reminder made Rei Minkai's heart skip a beat. However, from Invincible East's tone, it didn't seem like there was any special meaning behind his words. However, based on his intuition, Rei Minkai felt that Invincible East seemed to be hinting at something. However, no matter how much Rei Minkai thought about it, he couldn't figure it out. Rei Minkai's moment of contemplation made Invincible East nod slightly. Yes, not only the longbow, during the finals, the earth-shattering sky-shocking fist you used really surprised me. I don't remember accepting a disciple like you. Invincible East's teasing made Rei Minkai stunned, and then he smiled a little embarrassedly. If it was really like what Invincible East said, that he had been at the venue and witnessed the whole process of the finals between Rei Minkai, Makoto Ito, and Lingshi, then Pirate Gao Da's divine form was naturally seen by Invincible East. I've made a fool of myself in front of my lord. Ha ha ha! No matter. No matter. I know the uniqueness of the steel polo world, so don't mind these details. Invincible East waved his hand, indicating that it was fine, and then turned to Himimi. Girl, now you should also be working. Work? Himimi was stunned, and then looked at the girl standing beside Rei Minkai, who had been quietly watching the three people's conversation, following Invincible East's hint. Himimi could tell from the clothes she was wearing and the details of her behavior that this girl was probably from the royal family. Combined with the fact that Rei Minkai had the name of the Empress's personal knight, Himimi finally understood her duty. Rei Minkai, it seems that you are indeed a knight. Himimi looked at Rei Minkai with a smile that was not a smile, and then looked at the girl standing beside him. Guyan, I am the daughter of the Qin Army's commander, the City Lord of Star Glory City, Himimi. Welcome to Star Glory City. City Lord of Star Glory City. Himimi's self-introduction surprised Rei Minkai. He never thought that the City Lord of Star Glory City was actually this girl who had the double identity of an inspector and a singer. Are you surprised? The City Lord of Star Glory City is my part-time job, and I am not responsible for the daily management. Himimi glanced at Rei Minkai and seemed to be very dissatisfied with Rei Minkai's shock at the identity of the City Lord of Star Glory City. Well, yes. After all, at the very beginning, everyone thought that the position of City Lord of Star Glory City should be held by Sir Pioneer. However, Sir Pioneer showed a very disdainful look on the spot, and under the pressure, everyone took a step back and gave the position of City Lord to Himimi. Invincible East narration made Rei Minkai feel that everyone had joined forces to cheat Himimi. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Now is one of my few working hours as the City Lord. Himimi waved her hand, indicating that this was not the main point, and once again looked at the girl in the white gauze dress. "Sorry, I made a fool of myself. May I know who you are?" The girl glanced at Ray Minkai, and then, under his encouraging eyes, pinched the hem of her dress and bowed to Himimi. "I am the current empress of the Weiss Empire, Ethylum Weiss Illusia. Now I am following the Britannia Empire's knight, Captain Ray Minkai, to pay a visit to the two nobles." "Weiss Empire?" It seems that Her Majesty the Empress has indeed experienced a lot of hardships. But please rest assured, since Her Majesty has chosen to follow our inspector to Star Glory City, then the safety of your country is guaranteed. Himimi raised her hand and lightly tapped on the projection screen, and a glimmer of light fell from the sky and landed in front of Ethylum. In this glimmer of light, a badge gradually emerged, and when it completely appeared in front of Ethylum, Himimi pointed at the badge and gave a general introduction. "This is the certificate issued by Star Glory City to all the countries that have followed the inspector to Star Glory City. From today onwards, your country will be recognized by Star Glory City and will develop within the scope of the inspector's responsibility. This is the general content of all the regulations issued by Star Glory City to all the countries that have followed the inspector. For the main details, you can understand through the badge." Badge. Ethylum once again looked at Ray Minkai, and after confirming that Ray Minkai did not have the intention to refuse, she reached out and took the badge in her hand. The slightly smooth and cold feeling, surrounded by a slightly flickering golden edge, a universe city surrounded by stars suddenly appeared in the center of the badge. On the back of the badge, a name appeared quietly when Ethylum's gaze landed on it. Weiss Empire, Inspector Ray Minkai of the Space Administration Department. Ray Minkai, this is the pass for the country you're in charge of. From the day this pass is issued, you will be fully responsible for every word and action of the country you are in charge of. In other words, if the country you are in charge of uses your identity as an inspector to commit crimes with the resources of Star Glory City, you will be the first person responsible. Seeing Ethylum take the badge in her hand, Himimi once again looked at Ray Minkai. This time, Himimi's expression was extremely serious, and there was a bit of the aura of the City Lord of Star Glory City. Understood. Ray Minkai, who had no objection, responded straightforwardly. But Himimi didn't seem to agree with Ray Minkai's response, and she continued to say, 5 years ago, a newly appointed inspector allowed the country he was in charge of to use his identity as an inspector and the resources of Star Glory City to attack and oppress other civilizations. In order to achieve the goal of occupying an important resource galaxy, he didn't hesitate to use extreme means of crazily slaughtering the native civilizations to clear out all life in a galaxy. Ahem. Girl, let's stop here. I don't think Ray Minkai is that kind of person. Invincible East coughed slightly, indicating that Himimi could stop the topic. Although Ray Minkai was an inspector, Ethylum, who was standing next to him, was still a newcomer who knew nothing about Star Glory City. In this case, it was better not to let her know too much about Star Glory City and the dark secrets of the Space Administration. "Oh, sorry. I said too much on a whim. I was also involved in the expedition against that inspector, so I couldn't help but blurt it out. Okay, finally, Your Majesty Ethylum, welcome to Star Glory City. Thank you very much for your help, Sir Mayor and Sir Lord. If there's a chance in the future, I hope to invite both of you to our new hometown as guests." Ethylum bowed slightly and sincerely expressed her gratitude. Girl." Invincible East nodded slightly, then signaled to Himimi. The latter, on the other hand, walked to Ethylum knowingly. "Don't call me Sir Mayor. Just call me by my name. In exchange, I will also call you by your name. Okay." Himimi had a kind smile on her face, and the strong affinity she exuded made Ethylum, the new empress, nod involuntarily. "Yes, Himimi. Don't be so formal. Just call me Mimi. Come on, Ethylum, there's something I want to show you." After correcting Ethylum's address again, Himimi took her hand and led her to the other side. After the two left, Invincible East's expression finally began to change. Chapter 497. When Invincible East gaze and expression changed slightly, state White Cat Zero, whose hair stood on end despite Lei Mingkai's comforting, suddenly jumped up and landed in front of Lei Mingkai. In a gust of wind, it transformed into a wild lion form. Roar! The ferocious steel beast roared, as if warning the man in purple not to cross the line. The ferocious gaze was like a sharp knife piercing towards Invincible East, and the gust of wind caused by the roar made Invincible East's clothes flutter in the wind. It's quite imposing. Facing the wild lion's ferocious posture, most people would be scared out of their wits, but Invincible East only nodded slightly. State Zero, stop. All of this happened in an instant. Lei Mingkai could not react at all. He wanted to rush up and stop the wild lion from colliding with Invincible East, but Invincible East only stretched out a finger and pressed the wild lion to the ground. Roar! The wild lion roared crazily, and even the weapon sword on its body slashed towards Invincible East. However, Invincible East only needed to flick his finger to repel the greatsword that was coming at him. Quiet. I have no intention of being hostile with you. Invincible East kept his left hand that repelled the weapon sword, looked at Lei Mingkai, and then took out an object that looked like a gem from his pocket. Unexpectedly, the moment this object appeared, the wild lion's struggle became even more violent and crazy. That's a fragment. The object in Invincible East's hand was a fragment, and it was almost the same fragment as the one that was just handed over to the Ministry of Justice. A fragment? It seems that Ray has been eyeing this fragment in my hand since the beginning. My lord, where did you get this fragment in your hand? Lei Mingkai asked subconsciously when Invincible East looked over. This fragment? It will take some effort to say it. But, oh, take your hand away. I can get up by myself. Before Invincible East finished speaking, the wild lion gradually shrank until it turned back into the cute white cat form. Roar! White Cat State Zero shook its head vigorously, then looked up at the shard in Invincible East's hand. What did someone do to this damned fragment? Hands and feet? Probably. Invincible East lowered his gaze and sighed softly. Then he waved his left hand and the surrounding forest started to move. Amidst the rustling of leaves and branches, a group of monkeys appeared from the trees and behind the trees. Among them, some were holding chairs and tables, and some were holding bottles and jars. They walked to Dongfang Booby's side in groups and chattered noisily, as if they wanted to take credit for their achievements. All right, after leaving the things here, I'll go look for the maidservant. She took the guests to the lake. Invincible East patted a little monkey with a tuft of white hair on its head and smiled. Creak, creak, creak. Strangely enough, after Dongfang Booby finished speaking, the little monkey with a tuft of white hair on its head began to command the surrounding monkeys to arrange the things they had brought one by one. Then, the little monkeys circled around the neatly placed chairs and tables a few times. After confirming that there were no mistakes, it called all the monkeys to turn around and run towards the lake. What caught Lei Mingkai's attention was that the little monkey made a face at White Cat State Zero before it left, as if it was a 7- or 8-year-old child. This damn monkey, are you looking for a beating? State Zero, who had not completely gotten rid of the interference of the strange fragment, could not wait to jump up and teach the little monkey a lesson in the face of such a provocation. Please sit, Lei Mingkai, and you a very good lion. Invincible East stood by the table and invited Lei Mingkai and White Cat State Zero. That's a little monkey that the maidservant saved on a certain planet when she was young. It's usually a little mischievous. I hope you don't mind. White Cat State Zero did not care too much about the monkey. In its opinion, if it was really pissed off, it could just transform back into the Long Fong Lion Zero and ruthlessly clean up the forest. This is just a small matter. What I want to know more is, where did the fragment in your hand come from? I have never been affected by a fragment like this. Lei Mingkai agreed with White Cat State Zero's words. During this period of time, although he and White Cat State Zero had not recovered a double-digit number of fragments, they had at least reached a certain number. However, this was the first time that State Zero was affected by a fragment. Invincible East placed the fragment in his hand on the table and did not mind Ray Minkai and White Cat State Zero reaching out to take it away. Did you experience some strange phenomenon before? Invincible East did not answer White Cat State Zero's question. Instead, he asked Ray Minkai a question. This question suddenly stunned Ray Minkai. At the same time, White Cat State Zero also raised its small head and looked at Ray Minkai. Yes, speaking of special and strange phenomenon, Ray Minkai had indeed experienced it before. That was when he went berserk in Vice Kingdom. No, it should be said that if you count the time at Night Academy, it would be 2 times. You decide. As if sensing Ray Minkai's hesitation, White Cat State Zero just muttered and looked down at the fragment that Invincible East had placed on the table. It was very unhappy now. The fragment that had always been recycled could actually affect State Zero's own power. This change made White Cat State Zero somewhat unprepared, but it could not do anything. After all, after the hometown world was split into many fragments, White Cat State Zero should have been prepared. Ray Minkai was silent for a while, and finally decided to tell the whole story. Just like what was said before, if Invincible East wanted to harm Ray Minkai, he would not waste his breath like this. He would just throw a punch over and be done with it. Ray Minkai was very aware of the difference in strength between the two sides. As expected, after listening to Ray Minkai's narration of Vice Kingdom and the Berserk incident at Night Academy, Invincible East let out a long sigh of relief. Ray Minkai, State Zero. I believe you are very curious about this fragment, right? This was taken from an old friend of mine. It was taken from an old friend who had fallen into the abyss. Old friend? Fallen into the abyss? A question mark appeared above the heads of Ray Minkai and White Cat State Zero at the same time, but they did not rashly interrupt Invincible East's words. Her name is Lamia. She's a friend I met in a certain world. Even though Invincible Dongfang had only mentioned a name, Lei Minkai had already guessed who this so-called old friend of his was from this name. Lamia Labrise, a character who is active in many Super Mecha Wars movies. Although she was in the positive camp where the protagonists were, her true identity was a member of the antagonist camp, Shadow Mirror W-Series Cyborgs. If Invincible East could meet Lamia and form a friendship with her, it should only be because of Super Mecha Wars A. Just that. How did Lamia fall into the abyss? Lord. But before Ray Minkai could finish, Invincible East raised his hand to stop Ray Minkai from speaking. Just call me by my name. The title of Lord is a bit distant for me. Then, forgive me for offending you. Invincible East. That's good. Since that time when I died of exhaustion, the so-called Asian venerables and Lord were just an illusion. Invincible East admired Ray Minkai's willingness to follow advice. But he did not expect that his casual mention would attract Ray Minkai's attention. Invincible East's original fate was under the multiple influences of physical reasons and other factors. In the final battle with Doman, he calmly welcomed the ending of his death. If Invincible East in front of him was from that world, then DG cells? Ray Minkai thought about it and seemed to have come to this conclusion. Other than DG cells, there is probably nothing that could restore Invincible East's originally withered life. Of course, it could still be done by relying on the medical technology of Star City. But Ray Minkai could not believe this statement in the depths of his heart. And, as expected of the champion of the Steel Polo World Competition. That's right. Now, I've become one with the DG cells. After Invincible East admitted Ray Minkai's guess, he continued to talk about Lamia. Back to the topic. When I first met Lamia, this fragment was on her. At that time, neither I nor Doman took this fragment seriously. Not only that, even after Lamia went berserk many times during the battle, we did not consider the fragment as a suspicious factor that triggered her berserk. Invincible East picked up the fragment on the table and sighed. Until, when we faced the culprit who triggered a series of events and dragged the world to the brink of destruction, Lamia suddenly went berserk again under the influence of this fragment, completely pushing the whole world into the abyss. In the end, I, who had not yet integrated with DG cells, tried my best to take this fragment away from her. In other words, I may fall into the abyss at some point in the future like Lamia, completely becoming a puppet of the abyss and destroying the world. Invincible East's narration of Lamia's story made Ray Minkai's heart skip a beat. Ray Minkai did not have a general impression of the two Berserk experiences. Only afterward, based on the fragmented memory fragments that were almost negligible in State Zero's narration, he was barely able to restore the process of the matter. If he really degenerated like Lamia, then not only Ray Minkai himself, but even Euphemia and the others would not be able to escape. No, I can't be sure about this. After all, at that time, Lamia only wore. At this point, Invincible East glanced at the white cat, State Zero. But you guys absorbed and integrated the fragment. This may be the difference between you and Lamia. Chapter 498. When the sound of footsteps slowly sounded in the empty corridor, the lights on the ceiling gradually lit up along with the sound of footsteps, dispelling the darkness lingering in the corridor. At the end of this corridor, a glimmer of light quietly lit up the moment the sound of footsteps reached here. In this glimmer of light, a huge and transparent culture chamber impressively appeared in front of them. It was a huge culture chamber filled with light purple liquid. Surrounded by bubbles that rose from the bottom of the incubation chamber, a woman with long green hair and an extremely hot figure was quietly sleeping in the incubation chamber. She was wearing a loose, long white robe that reached her ankles. The sound of footsteps came from afar until the owner of the footsteps walked out of the corridor and stood in front of this huge culture chamber. Under that glimmer of light, a clown mask with a smile that was not a smile, with stars and tear patterns on it slightly raised, and the eyes hidden behind the mask looked at the green-haired woman sleeping in the culture chamber. "The time is up. Our ally. You don't have to continue sleeping." A low voice quietly sounded from under the clown mask, and as the word sounded, the low voice gradually leaped into a high realm, until the voice under the clown mask reverberated in this space for a long time. Putong, Putong. All of a sudden, the bubbles in the incubation chamber increased dramatically, and the light purple liquid inside the incubation chamber was frantically stirred until the woman sleeping inside was completely submerged. At the same time, the light purple liquid wrapped around her also began to be released. As the water level dropped, the green-haired woman floating in the culture chamber's feet touched the bottom, and her eyes that had been sleeping for a long time also became active. "Wake up, our ally, Lamia Labrise." The clown mask once again called out to the green-haired woman, and at the moment when the call was at its highest, it called out the green-haired woman's name. "So noisy. Give this big miss." The moment the last trace of light purple liquid flowed out, the green-haired woman's eyes finally opened. However, when the green-haired woman, who was a bit annoyed by the clown mask's call, wanted to scold the other party, she realized that she seemed to have said something wrong. "Shut up, mortal." As her mouth moved, the green-haired woman once again realized that her words seemed to be wrong with her thoughts. "Shut up, a lowly worm? No, this is..." The green-haired woman's eyebrows trembled slightly. She realized that she couldn't control the words that came out of her mouth. Clown Mask noticed the green-haired woman's strange behavior, but he didn't care about her seemingly rude words. "How so?" "Our ally, the respected Miss Lamia." The green-haired woman, Lamia Labrise, frowned slightly. "Tell me, have you really finished repairing my body?" Facing the question, Clown Mask bowed slightly and said with certainty, "Yes. Our allies. We have already done our best to repair Miss Lamia's body. Could it be that there are still side effects?" A few years ago, at the moment when Lamia fell into the abyss, she was defeated by Invincible East, who had erupted with power beyond his limits. Not only had he lost the most important fragment, but he had also almost fallen into the final fate of eternal death. Fortunately, before the moment of fate arrived, Lamia persevered until the moment when the Parliament of Destiny converged with her. Lamia's face was slightly gloomy, but after a comprehensive self-examination, she found that the abnormality she felt was just an old problem of hers. This was an old problem of her language system being damaged due to an unexpected situation during the execution of a certain mission. It seemed to have become an inescapable nightmare, tightly entangling Lamia. No, Mr. J, you did a good job. It's just that my old problem is still there. But this doesn't affect our actions. Old problem. Clown Mask was stunned for a moment, but after hearing that Lamia didn't need to pay too much attention to the so-called old problem, he was slightly relieved. Then, Miss Lamia, please move. We have prepared everything for you. Clown Mask turned slightly, revealing the corridor behind him that had been illuminated by the light. The isolation glass of the culture chamber slowly descended until it completely disappeared into the bottom of the culture chamber. Lamia then stepped out of the culture chamber that she had been in for who knows how long. Mr. J, how long has it been since I arrived here? It has been nearly 5 years since Miss Lamia arrived at our Parliament of Destiny. Miss Lamia, you have been sleeping in the culture chamber for 5 years. 5 years? I didn't expect to be separated from a master. The tone of the first half of the sentence was very cold, but before the second half of the sentence was finished, Lamia, who once again had her old problem, suddenly became mute. How? Miss Lamia. Clown Mask looked at Lamia, puzzled. Lamia closed her eyes slightly, once again readjusted her posture, and shook her head. No, it's just a small problem. Now, Mr. J, it's time to take me to see your so-called Parliament of Destiny. Yes, our ally, Miss Lamia. Different? Ray Minkai took a slight breath and looked at Invincible East. What Invincible East said just now seemed to be the difference between Ray Minkai, White Cat State Zero, and Lamia. In his mind, he recalled all kinds of things when he fought side by side with Lamia, and compared them with the analysis report of the Space Administration on Ray Minkai, White Cat State Zero, and even Euphemia. Invincible East nodded slowly. Yes. First, the fragment came from your homeworld. According to the space-time theory of the Ministry of Justice, you and the fragment have a certain degree of resonance. Lamia, on the other hand, did not come from your homeworld. In a sense, Lamia is undoubtedly an outsider who has taken something from your homeworld. So this outsider may suffer a backlash from the fragment. Ray Minkai moved his gaze and looked at the materialized fragment. Ever since he began to wander around the various worlds, anyone who had anything to do with the shard had no choice but to die a violent death. Well, I believe you have more experience than me on this point. Invincible East stretched out 2 fingers and continued. The second time, which is what I said before, when you obtained the fragment, you should have swallowed and fused it. Moreover, compared to Lamia, who can only hold it and bear the backlash of the fragment alone, there are 3 people who bear the risk of your swallowing and fusing. Wait, 3 people? As soon as Invincible East finished speaking, Ray Minkai suddenly thought of something. State Zero is the third person UFFI. At that moment, the third person Ray Minkai could think of was Euphemia. White Cat State Zero scratched its chin with its right hind leg and responded as a matter of course. Isn't this a matter of course? After we appeared in front of Euphemia and saved her from death, we are one. You should know this after the battle of the 9 prefectures. Now that things have come to this, what are you surprised about? Ray Minkai was speechless. This was not because Ray Minkai was surprised, but because there was still a trace of luck left in his heart. And now, this trace of luck had vanished with the showdown between Invincible East and White Cat State Zero. It seems that you have understood the current situation. Invincible East waited for Ray Minkai and White Cat State Zero's conversation to end before he continued to speak. Yes, I have understood. Then what about the third point? Invincible East shook his head slightly in the face of Ray Minkai's inquiry. This was not Invincible East's intention to keep it secret and pretend to be mysterious, but at this point in time, Invincible East and even the space-time administrator behind him did not obtain any more relevant information. That's it. Then, is UFFI's current situation also caused by the backlash of the fragment that caused her to faint? Combining Invincible East's words with Euphemia's current situation, Ray Minkai came to a conclusion that might be the truth. Maybe, or maybe not. You need to find the answer for this point yourself. In addition, we already have a way to wake up Her Majesty Euphemia. Really? Upon hearing this news, Ray Minkai could not help but stand up. According to the report from the Ministry of Justice, Her Majesty Euphemia did not suffer any physical harm. That is to say, Her Majesty Euphemia's current situation is likely to be a mental problem. As soon as Invincible East finished speaking, Himimi's voice came from the side. Mental abnormality? I'm good at this. Ray Minkai heard and looked back. He found that Himimi and Isolum, who had just left together, had returned. And on Himimi's shoulder was the little monkey with a small tuft of white hair. Now I know the purpose of Ray asking you to come to me. It's just a matter of a song. Very simple. A song. Ray Minkai suddenly remembered that when he first met Himimi, the girl in front of him seemed to be someone who sang and fought at the same time. Then, I'll leave it to you. Please wake up Her Majesty Euphemia as soon as possible. And leave it to me. Himimi did what she said. She raised her hand and snapped her fingers. A shadow that looked like a Kuin Pung appeared in the sky. Looking up, this shadow was the body that Ray Minkai had seen before, Voidwalker. From a circular devices hanging on the left and right wings of Voidwalker, Ray Minkai was most impressed with this body's equipment, that pair of large sound systems. The low roar of the engine shrouded the forest from top to bottom. When the huge body landed 100 meters away from the ground, it quietly changed. The two propulsion engines behind it were unlocked and moved down, turning into a bipedal form, while the upper body still maintained the original fighter form. This was one of the three forms of the VF fighter that Ray Minkai was familiar with, G-form. Come, Her Majesty Isolum. Ray Minkai still has some things to deal with here. I need to go back to treat Her Majesty Euphemia now, and I'll send you back while I'm at it. When Voidwalker landed beside Himimi, Himimi also extended her hand to Isolum. Isolum subconsciously looked at Ray Minkai again, seemingly asking for Ray Minkai's opinion. Your Majesty, Isolum, you can go back first. Here, I still have some things to ask. When Ray Minkai saw Isolum's eyes, he also understood what she meant. After confirming that the Weiss Empire belonged to Ray Minkai, Isolum was very clear about her position. Then, I'll have to trouble the City Lord. Don't call me City Lord. Just call me by my name. Come, let's go. Himimi stretched out her hand, and Isolum boarded Voidwalker. Then, under the gaze of Ray Minkai, White Cat Zero, and Invincible East, Voidwalker rose into the air and quickly disappeared into the sky. Okay, next, we have other things to do. Please sit down. After Invincible East retracted his gaze, he once again invited Ray Minkai to sit down. After Ray Minkai sat down, he reached out and took out an object that looked like a chip from his pocket. This is? Ray Minkai looked left and right for a while, but he couldn't find any clues from the object that looked like a chip. This is a chip that an old friend entrusted to me, hoping that I can give it away at the right time. Invincible East smiled gently and continued as if he was referring to something else. Now it is the right time. In my opinion, I'm afraid that no one else can accept this chip as well as you. Invincible East's meaning made Ray Minkai feel puzzled. From the looks of the chip, it seemed to be a chip that had already been damaged. Such a chip, no matter how one looked at it, was already equivalent to a piece of trash. But this chip made Invincible East in front of him so serious, it really made Ray Minkai unable to make a decision for a while. Invincible East, do you want me to accept this chip? It's not whether I want it or not, but how do you decide in your heart? At this moment, Ray Minkai suddenly felt like he was playing an RPG game. Invincible East in front of him was like an NPC issuing missions, throwing out questions for him to make a choice, and never making suggestions for Ray Minkai to accept or not to accept. Moving his gaze, Ray Minkai saw that the white cat, State Zero, was also looking at the chip. However, Ray Minkai didn't find any signs of desire from the white cat, State Zero. Accept or not, Ray Minkai had already made his decision. I accept. Venerable Invincible East. Ray Minkai's answer made Invincible East laugh. Ha ha! Very good. Very good. Then this belongs to you. Invincible Dongfang handed the chip to Lei Mingkai and said, "Don't worry. This is a chip taken from an AI that once almost destroyed human civilization. Moreover, not long ago, this chip inexplicably showed a trace of an unknown reaction. After inspection, this chip's abnormality is very likely related to the fragment you are looking for." Chapter 499. In the darkness, a flame suddenly rose. The wildly dancing flames continuously dispelled the surrounding darkness and illuminated the space that was covered by darkness. In an instant, the dome above her head was suffused with traces of blood-like red light. As it lit up, it flowed wantonly in all directions. The blood-colored flowing light vibrated like veins and spread everywhere like flowing water. In just a few breaths, the huge arc-shaped dome was completely occupied by the blood-colored flowing light. At this moment, the light suddenly lit up. It was as if a sun had risen in the darkness, revealing all the world covered by darkness in front of Lamia's eyes. The abyss. Without hesitation or doubt, when the light lit up, Lamia saw the scenery hidden behind the light. It was a chaotic world mixed with blood and fire, life and death. There was no sound, no color. There was only the final remnant of the wails that kept coming from the cracks of the world that were constantly twisting and shattering. There was also the remnant resentment of the civilization that was unwilling to be swallowed by the abyss and eventually fell into the end of destruction. There was also the regret of giving everything, but ultimately failing to save the people they loved and the civilization they loved from the abyss. All of this converged to form the door that she saw before stepping into the abyss. A door formed by the remnant sounds of countless civilizations that were destroyed by the abyss over a long period of time. Unwillingness, resentment, anger. Is this the dome of the Parliament of Destiny? Lamia stopped and looked at the door that gradually revealed its true appearance as the light faded. "It's spectacular, isn't it? Miss Lamia, this is the foundation of the Parliament of Destiny." The clown mask standing behind Lamia laughed. The dull and crazy laughter penetrated the mask and echoed under the dome for a long time. The door that wanders in the abyss. This is the remnant sound of civilization, but also the miserable howl of civilization when it comes to its end. To us, this is undoubtedly the best reward. As soon as the voice that appeared out of nowhere sounded, Mr. J's laughter stopped abruptly. A cold gaze shot out from under the mask and pierced straight into the darkness not far away. Don't be so excited, Mr. J, although we haven't seen each other for a while. But I don't like this kind of intense reminiscing. Mr. Have you completed all the tasks given to you by the chairman? You should know that it has only been half a year since you accepted the mission. Amidst the chilling, murderous aura, the clown mask quietly twisted and changed its shape. From the original clown mask with tears in his smile, it quietly turned into a terrifying, ferocious, and terrifying mask. Oomph. A burst of complacent laughter came from a dark corner, but Lamia, who was watching from the sidelines, was still unable to discover the person hiding in the shadows. "It's just a small world. You don't need Mr. J to worry about you. Furthermore, when a mission was completed, I left a gift for the pack of hounds. Mr. J, I'm afraid you'll be targeted by those hounds for some time to come." "What?" The pattern on the clown mask distorted. Obviously, Mr. J already knew what the person hiding in the shadows had done. Mr. No one knew his real name. They only knew that before he joined the Destiny Council, he was once called Assassin. Other than that, they only knew that at a certain time, the person who was once called Assassin could disguise himself as someone else through some means. Moreover, his disguise skills were so superb that even the person he disguised himself as could not detect any flaws. In other words, without Mr. J's knowledge, Mr. A had used his appearance to destroy a world and left behind obvious clues to attract the attention of the hounds controlled by the Space Administration. "Mr. A, how dare you disobey the chairman's order? You should know that you're responsible for that world. Why did you disguise yourself as me? Mr. J raised his right hand and pressed it down, and several cold lights shot out from his hand. The cold lights broke through the darkness in the blink of an eye and went straight to the person protected by the darkness. However, Mr. J's angry attack was destined to fail. Stop! Above the dome, a cold roar suddenly descended, and Mr. J, as well as Mr. A, who was hiding in the shadows, were violently pressed to the ground. Mr. A also fell out of the shadows and lay on the ground, trembling in fear. Please forgive my rudeness. Mr. Chairman. Mr. J knelt on the ground and begged for mercy with a trembling voice. Mr. J, Mr. A, the Destiny Council forbids any attack on any member and all allies who help us. Now, go and reflect on your actions. Crack! With a dull thud, two holes suddenly appeared under Mr. J and Mr. A's feet. Before the two could react, they were swallowed by the hole. Lamia, who was standing next to them, silently watched as the hole swallowed the two and disappeared completely. The ground became smooth and transparent again, and for a moment, she was silent. However, the voice that came from above the dome had no intention of letting her go. Sorry, Miss Lamia. We didn't mean to let you see the ugliness between our members. Believe me, this is just an accident. I promise you that the same situation will not happen again in the future. As the thunderous voice rolled in the air, Lamia also put away some of her scattered thoughts and looked up at the door, the dome with the image of the abyss. Presumably, you're the chairman of the Destiny Council, right? Yes. Dear Miss Lamia, please forgive me for not being able to meet you in person now. Why? I don't think a council led by a chairman who can't meet me is worthy of my joining. Lamia's gaze gradually became cold and fierce, as if she wanted to see through the person called the chairman hidden behind the abyss. However, before the person hidden behind the abyss spoke, another unfamiliar voice sounded. Yes. What value does a guy who hides his head and shows his tail have to let us join his Destiny Council? Lamia looked back and saw a young man dressed in a luxurious white robe with a gorgeous and solemn crown on his head. His eyes had a mysterious and strange purple light flowing through them. He was standing not far behind her. Like Lamia, he raised his head and looked behind the abyss. Mr. K, you succeeded? A surprised voice came from above the dome. Lamia couldn't help but curiously size up this young man who had appeared behind her at some point in time. Sorry for worrying the chairman. Thanks to your blessings, I have successfully walked out of that path that had no end. The man in the white robe bowed slightly and showed a confident smile. Is that so? That's great. Mr. K, in addition to being surprised, the chairman's voice also had a trace of relief. Thank you for worrying. After the man in the white robe thanked him again, his tone suddenly changed and became sharp. Chairman, as I said just now, a council led by a person who hides his head and shows his tail has no value for us to join. The repeated words made the president fall silent. Presumably, the words of the man in the white robe had made the chairman feel embarrassed. Yes, throughout the long years, there had been countless people who had stepped onto that endless path in an attempt to find the end point hidden in the depths of endless despair. However, the result was that one person after another fell on the path, and, in the end, a terrifying plane formed from bones was formed. And now, the man who was called Mr. K had found the end point that should only exist in legends. After weighing the pros and cons, the chairman finally made what he thought was the most correct decision. Sorry, Mr. K, Miss Lamia. Now, my body can't come and meet you in person. Therefore, the only thing I can do is to meet you in the form of a mass projection at this moment. Lamia kept quiet about these words, which were obviously a show of goodwill, and just waited for the man in the white robe who had walked to her side to speak. Very good, Chairman. That's enough. The man in the white robe smiled slightly and looked at the mass projection that was gradually taking shape as it was projected from the abyss above the dome. Once again, he thanked and bowed. Thank you for your understanding, Mr. K. It was a sharp gaze hidden under the sword-like eyebrows, the square face, graying sideburns, but a ruddy face. Was this the true face of the legendary chairman of the Parliament of Destiny? As this thought surfaced in Lamia's mind, she was also stared at by the chairman. Miss Lamia, how is your physical condition? In order to heal your injuries, we have already done everything we can to treat you. Yes, thank you for your concern. Now, except for the old illness, my body is all right. Lamia nodded slightly to express her gratitude for the chairman's concern. Yes, although I would like to talk to you, the changes in the battle situation have made me powerless. Mr. K, Mr. Lamia, I hope we will have a chance to meet in 3 days. At that time, I will meet you in person. Yes, then I will wait for the good news from the chairman. In addition, I wish the chairman a victory. Mr. K made a statement on the spot. It seemed that he had already known the situation the chairman was facing, and used this to put pressure on the chairman to make him express his stance. In that case, goodbye. The mass projection that had just been cast did not last for a few minutes before it once again turned into a stream of light and disappeared above the dome. He left. Lamia looked at the stream of light that disappeared, but there were more doubts in her heart that could not be solved. Miss Lamia, what is your decision? The white-robed man turned to look at Lamia. Have you decided? Lamia pondered for a moment and nodded. Now, I have no way out. So, I will join the Parliament of Destiny. Welcome, Miss Lamia, to the Parliament of Destiny. I am Mr. K. The white-robed man gladly made a welcoming gesture, but he concealed his real name. Mr. K. His real name was Lucio Lamperigi. He was also the white-robed man who had resolutely stepped on the ladder of 7 words under the gaze of CC and Dr. Zasali, and finally stepped out of the ladder of 7 words and stood here, facing the chairman of the Parliament of Destiny. However, before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. When the projection of the chairman dissipated and Lucio welcomed Lamia, 2 more figures appeared in the darkness. The chairman's aura disappeared. Is it over? Are we late? When the voice came, 2 tall women, who also wore the same uniform but had different hair colors, walked out of the darkness and stood in front of Lucio and Lamia. The leader was a woman with long emerald green hair and a rose pendant around her neck. Behind her was a young girl with long pink hair and a dignified and elegant demeanor. Mr. K, is that you? Why do I feel like your appearance has changed? The woman with long emerald green hair was slightly taken aback when she saw Lucio. Looking at the woman in front of him, a memory that was silent in Lucio's mind quietly awakened. This was the memory of the emperor who was killed by Lucio. After his death, along with the power that flowed into Lucio's body, these memories also became a part of Lucio. Miss E, long time no see. It seems that you should have found your partner. Lucio's gaze passed by the woman he called Miss and fell on the dignified young girl. From her body, Lucio seemed to feel a trace of inexplicable abnormality that he could not explain. Yes, Mr. K, this is my partner, Mia. Under Miss E's introduction, the girl with long pink hair moved lightly, presented herself in front of Mr. K, and saluted him. Mr. K, I'm Mia. I'm Miss E's new partner. Very good partner. Miss E, it seems that your plan is going well. Lucio nodded slightly. After praising her, he directed the topic to Miss E. The plan is going well. Originally, I wanted to explain to the speaker before harvesting the fruit, but I didn't expect to miss the time to meet with the speaker. Miss E first nodded, then regretfully looked up at the abyss on the dome. There will be a chance in the future. That's right. This is our new member, Miss Lamia. Lucio nodded slightly, then turned Miss E's attention to Lamia. Nice to meet you. My name is Lamia, from now on, please. Lamia was just about to introduce herself, but unexpectedly, that stubborn old illness of hers flared up again. And, Miss, he looked at Lamia suspiciously. No, I'm very sorry. I'm Lamia. Please take care of me from now on. After quickly finishing this sentence, Lamia breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that his stubborn old illness would cause some trouble again. "Hello, I'm Miss." The communication between women was unusually smooth. But Lucio looked at the abyss on the dome. "Your Excellency, please take care. The strength of the pioneers is far beyond our imagination." Chapter 500. Between illusion and reality. There were two figures standing in the space that was filled with the wails of death. They had been here since some time ago. They had never left or moved forward. They just stood there quietly and stared at the person standing in front of them. Perhaps at this moment a long time had passed. Or perhaps at this moment time had just begun. It was as if in this space, all the time and space that all life could sense had turned into endless chaos. It never moved or existed. All of a sudden, two even larger figures appeared in the chaos without any warning. One was gold, one was black. They were all standing behind the two figures. "Forerunners, do you really want to be enemies with us?" The giant black figure stood behind them. That person took the lead to attack the person in front of him, the person protected by the giant golden figure. "You're really naive. I didn't expect that after dying so many times at my hands, your brain didn't grow much." Under the golden figure, the figure called the Forerunner sneered. "Oomph. I only respected the first successor in history to inherit the prophet's legacy. I didn't expect you to look down on me." Under the black figure, a counterattack was followed by a sneer. "Say no more. Phoenix." With a cold shout, the giant golden figure stretched and opened. Dozens of golden streams of light soared into the sky, stirring up a golden storm as they went straight for the giant black figure in front of them. Moreover, wherever the golden storm passed, the terrifying space between illusion and reality, filled with the wails of the civilization that was destroyed by the abyss at every moment, melted as quickly as ice and snow exposed to the blazing flames. In just the blink of an eye, the golden storm stirred up by the golden figure called Phoenix rushed in front of the black figure. At the same time, it locked down the space in all directions, leaving no gap for the black figure to escape. Faced with this situation, the black figure did not resist. It was as if he had accepted the reality that he was about to face and the fact that he was about to step into death. Under the golden storm, whether it was the distorted reality, the abyss of space, or the wails of the civilization that was unwilling to be destroyed, everything turned into nothingness. The original appearance of the space that they had occupied for a long time once again appeared in this world. It still doesn't work, as expected of a Forerunner. Originally, I thought that I would be able to reach the Forerunner realm, but I never thought that I was just a pitiful frog at the bottom of a well. This time, forgive me for taking my leave." Raising its head to look at the golden storm that was rolling over its head, the black shadow immediately fell apart, no longer having the huge body from before. Meanwhile, the figure under its protection calmly welcomed the arrival of his own death. The golden storm passed in the blink of an eye, leaving behind only a vast space that had once again returned to darkness. However, in that deep darkness, bursts of light that seemed to be breathing quietly lit up in a vast space. "Lord Forerunner, please reply if you got it." With the departure of the howling abyss, the space gradually became lively. In the blink of an eye, it was flooded with all kinds of radio waves from different civilizations. "Got it. I'm done here. How's the situation over there?" With just a thought in his mind, the person who called the Forerunner immediately received a response. "Yes, Lord Forerunner, progress had been made on the battlefront. The First and Third Fleets have broken through the enemy's defensive line and are now taking over the enemy's core area as planned. The situation developed as expected, or rather, the Forerunner's enemy once again chose to die under the Forerunner's unexpected gaze. What a troublesome guy. No matter how many times he is killed, he will always appear in front of you again. Is that all the President of the Destiny Council can do?" While thinking, a cold female voice quietly sounded. "No, the guy just doesn't want me to see through his strength." The pioneer turned around and saw a woman with blonde hair tied up. She was dressed in a long black dress. She looked cold and proud as she stood there, waiting for him. If you're here, what about the First Fleet? The enemy's defensive line has been lost. Even if I stay there, there are no enemies worthy of me making a move. So I'm here. When the cold woman's gaze met the Forerunners, it instantly melted and became as gentle as water. Is that so? I'm done here too. Let's go back. Okay. However, after taking a few steps, the Forerunner stopped in his tracks. Oh, right. That piece of pistol has been sent out? Yes. It's already been sent to that person. Well, then let's wait and see. Star Glory City. Ray Minkai, who took the unknown chip from Invincible East, returned to the Space Administration. Ray Minkai, who originally wanted to visit Euphemia, did not expect to see a familiar figure standing at the door the moment he stepped into the Space Administration, waiting for his return. Pink long hair, softly draped over her shoulders, a white dress embroidered with the Britannia royal family's patterns on the collar and cuffs, sparkling under the light. The face that should still be in a coma was now smiling sweetly. Kai, welcome back. The figure that greeted Ray Minkai gently called out Ray Minkai's name. UFFI. With a big stride, Ray Minkai hugged Euphemia into his arms. You're awake. Yes. It's all thanks to Mimi's singing. Euphemia listened to Ray Minkai's heartbeat and said softly. However, this warmth was destined to not last. Ahem. You two have to pay attention to the situation. This is the administration's hall. When Mimi's voice came, Ray Minkai and Euphemia realized that they were in the administration's hall. At this time, the administration's hall, which was usually bustling with people, was quiet. No matter which race, they consciously stopped and distanced themselves, leaving as much space as possible for Ray Minkai and Euphemia. Okay, thank you, City Lord. At this time, Euphemia had turned into a shy girl, burying her head in Ray Minkai's arms. Therefore, only Ray Minkai could thank Mimi. However, Ray Minkai used the wrong name. Mimi waved her hand, indicating that the people around her didn't need to pay attention to the situation here, and walked in front of Ray Minkai. Didn't I say it before? I'm just holding the position of City Lord. Don't mind the name too much. Also, you can call me by my name like before. Okay, I was rude. Mimi. Ray Minkai nodded in agreement. Mimi furrowed her brows. How did you become a stubborn old knight now? Did Grandpa say something to you? No. The Venerable One didn't say anything to me. I just sincerely thank Mimi for your help. Before Ray Minkai finished speaking, Mimi showed a look of disdain. Forget it. That's it. Her Majesty Euphemia's condition has stabilized. You can go back. The familiar palace. The familiar crowd. After leaving the Space Administration, Ray Minkai and Euphemia finally returned to their world, standing on the land of the Britannia Empire. Solemn music resounded over the capital. Knights wearing the uniform of the Knights of the Royal Guard drove the Lionheart Knight on both sides of the road, showing the highest etiquette of the Empire to welcome the return of the king for their king, and also for the knight captain who led them. Behind the Lionheart Knight, there were people in bright clothes and excited expressions. Every time they made eye contact with Euphemia, the people shouted the name of their king frantically. At the end of the road, Cornelia stood there with everyone, waiting for the return of Euphemia and Ray Minkai. And on their left, there were people like Isolim and Ram, who came to the Britannia Empire first. Welcome back, Your Majesty. Without any superfluous words, when Euphemia and Ray Minkai walked 10 meters in front of them, Cornelia led everyone to kneel down on the spot. Get up, Sister Royal. This time, I made the decision on my own. Thank you for your hard work. Euphemia quickly stepped forward and helped Cornelia up. No, this is what I should do. Cornelia just finished speaking, then turned to Ray Minkai. Knight Captain, although this is your mission, please don't involve Her Majesty in it. The Britannia Empire can't afford to lose another king. Ray Minkai was silent. This was a fact that Ray Minkai couldn't refute. However, Euphemia's accident was also something he could not have predicted. Sister Royal, please don't blame Kai. This is my own decision. Also, if an accident can be predicted in advance, then it's not an accident. Euphemia defended Ray Minkai on the spot. In the face of Euphemia's defense, Cornelia was unwilling, but she couldn't refute it. After all, Euphemia's departure was, to a certain extent, Cornelia's acquiescence. Your Majesty, Isolum, I wonder if the Britannia Empire's arrangements for you are to your satisfaction? Euphemia looked at Isolum and the others who were guarding the side. Yes. Thank you very much for your help, Your Majesty and the Empire. Our Weiss is satisfied with all the arrangements. Isolum bowed slightly, but said a request that surprised everyone present. Also, this is my personal request. Your Majesty Euphemia, now that Weiss's situation is stabilized, I hope to follow Your Majesty Euphemia as a student and learn how to govern the country. As soon as Isolum's request came out, it immediately attracted the exclamations and discussions of the surrounding people. In an instant, other than the people on Isolum's side, the rest of the people were whispering about the feasibility and possible impact of this request. Sister Royal Kai, what do you think? Euphemia's eyes flashed as she asked Cornelia and Ray Minkai respectively. We will follow Your Majesty's orders. Cornelia didn't object or agree, but she gave the decision to Euphemia. For Cornelia, the addition of the people from the Weiss Empire represented by Isolum was undoubtedly an impact on the current situation of the Britannia Empire. This Weiss Empire that came from another world and joined the Britannia Empire after the adjustment of the space administration only had tens of thousands of people left, but Isolum had mastered a technology that could supplement the energy structure of the Britannia Empire. Cornelia believed that Euphemia and even Ray Minkai had foreseen this. Your Majesty, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Compared to Cornelia's caution, Ray Minkai was much more generous. After Isolum accepted the badge, the Weiss Empire was already in the hands of the Britannia Empire. Now, Isolum's request to join the Britannia Empire as Euphemia's student was based on the badge. Yes. Then, Your Majesty Isolum, do you understand all the requirements, obligations, and even lifelong responsibilities of becoming my student? Yes. Her Majesty Euphemia. Henceforth, the Weiss Empire will temporarily give up its title until Her Majesty Euphemia recognizes me and all the efforts of the Weiss Empire. Isolum reached out and gently took off the crown that symbolized the Weiss Empire. She took 2 steps forward, half-knelt on the ground, and presented the crown in her hands with both hands, waiting for Euphemia's decision. Stand up, Isolum. I, and even the Britannia Empire, will not accept the Weiss Empire's crown. This crown can only be kept by you, Her Majesty Euphemia. Isolum looked at Euphemia in surprise, as if she could not understand Euphemia's actions at this moment. Euphemia just smiled and gestured for Isolum to stand beside her. Stand beside me, Isolum. From now on, you're my clerk. The small disturbance of the welcoming ceremony was over, and Isolum became Euphemia's clerk from now on. So hardworking. Princess from Mars. In the back garden of the palace, Royd, who had just finished a large-scale inspection of the battleship, saw Isolum, who was holding a pile of documents, shuttling back and forth in the palace before picking up the teacup. Of course, her little follower, Adelizo, was naturally inseparable from her. Let's not talk nonsense. Royd, did you find out anything about the chip? After returning to Britannia, Ray Minkai gave the chip obtained from Invincible East to Royd. Royd put down the teacup and shook his head regretfully. That chip has been destroyed and is in a complete mess. Apart from detecting an unknown force on it, there's nothing else special. Is that so? In that case, leave it to me. As soon as Ray Minkai finished speaking, Royd suddenly looked at Ray Minkai with bright eyes. Knight, is this the mission given to you by the authority? In other words, another new technology will be brought back by night? Royd, you have to deal with the Lambda drive system and the ALDNOH reactor first. Chapter 501. The title of the chapter was missing. It should be Chapter 497. A white cloak with the head of a flaming lion wrapped around a white military uniform embroidered with gorgeous patterns. A long sword with the exclusive coat of arms of the Britannia royal family was held by the brown beauty with both hands and respectfully handed to Rei Minkai. That was the sword specially prepared for Rei Minkai for the court meeting. Thank you, Veretta. Rei Minkai looked at the brown beauty in front of him and nodded slightly. Rei Minkai was not the only one who participated in the court meeting today. As the adjutant of the night, Veretta naturally had the qualifications to follow Rei Minkai to participate in the court meeting. Moreover, from the brown beauty's meticulous dressing, one could see how much Veretta was looking forward to this court meeting. Speaking of which, it was inevitable. Veretta's biggest wish was to become a member of the nobility. Although this wish was very vulgar, it was a wish formed for Veretta's early experience. One must know that this court meeting was the first one held since Euphemia ascended the throne. Apart from the ascension ceremony a year ago, it was the only time that nobles from all over the country gathered in the capital. Sir, this is what I should do. Veretta's long ponytail, wrapped in silk, fell on her chest with her slightly lowered head. Seeing this, Rei Minkai raised his hand and gently lifted Veretta's ponytail and put it back on her back. No, Veretta. Well, I mean, is this year, it's been hard on you. When Rei Minkai traveled between worlds and carried out missions, the entire Night Guards could be said to rely on Veretta to operate. As one of the core members of the Night Guards, Veretta knew that the other two core members, Sirigu and Titania, maintained an indifferent attitude to almost everything other than participating in the Night Guards training. Therefore, as the Night Guards grew stronger day by day, the burden on Veretta's shoulders became heavier and heavier. However, in the face of such a heavy burden, Veretta was willing to endure it. No, sir, this is what I should do. This time, Veretta no longer lowered her head. Instead, she raised her head and looked straight into Rei Minkai's eyes, as if to express her feelings. Rei Minkai was silent. At this moment, Veretta's eyes were blazing. What a pair of eyes! Rei Minkai's eyes. Veretta. Before Rei Minkai could say anything, Veretta spoke first. Let's go. Sir, let me fasten the sword on for you. Rei Minkai was silent. He could only unconsciously lift his cloak and let Veretta carefully fasten the sword on his belt. A silver ponytail, brown skin, and the purple military uniform that Veretta loved the most. In front of Rei Minkai's eyes, Rei Minkai's eyes interweaved into a beautiful picture. Not long after, Veretta, who had fastened the sword, raised her head again, but her eyes met with Rei Minkai's. At this moment, Veretta slightly shifted her gaze, and two red clouds flew up to her cheeks. Sir, it's getting late. Rei Minkai's left hand pressed on the hilt of the sword, nodded slightly, and turned his back to Veretta. Let's go. Veretta, this is the imperial court that will change the empire. Yes, sir. Veretta knew will follow by your side until death. The sun slowly rose from the east, showering the earth with its radiance that it had bestowed upon all living beings on earth. The living beings bathed in the radiance left long shadows on the ground. It's getting hotter. The palace gate hasn't opened yet. The nobles who had rushed back to the capital from all over the country gathered in groups of twos and threes in front of the gate of the palace, forming a small circle that was particularly eye-catching. Although these small circles had all kinds of grudges in the past, they were now complaining in their hearts. When the nobles, big and small, came to participate in the court assembly, none of them seemed to have expected that the door that separated the palace from the outside world did not show any signs of opening, even as the sun gradually rose into the sky. Looking at the silent door and the soldiers who were standing on the city walls and looking straight ahead, ignoring the nobles who were being roasted by the sun that was gradually rising to the top of the sky, the small circle on the right side of the door that consisted of only 3 people who were dressed in luxurious clothes and had an even more elegant bearing gradually moved. The 3 people who formed this small circle were one of the 3 great nobles who stood at the top of the Britannia Empire. They respectively controlled the main forces in the military, economic, and political fields, forming a complementary relationship with each other. Under this relationship, the families represented by the three of them adopted the practice of marriage when the new generation of the family came of age to strengthen the relationship between the three great families. Therefore, when the previous emperor was on the throne, the three great families had already faintly formed a force and were ready to take the next step. But they never expected that at this time, the previous emperor died, and the power was seized by Emperor Lucio, and then Euphemia, who had been missing for a long time, made a strong return and successfully ascended to the top. The series of sudden changes made the nobles and the whole empire panic, and also gave the new empress, Euphemia, an opportunity to strike, and in a short time, crippled a lot of the power in the hands of the great nobles. Following that, the three great nobles who had finally managed to pull themselves together and gather their forces to launch a counterattack suddenly discovered that the young empress who was sitting on the throne had actually disappeared under the name of the Space Administration, leaving behind Cornelia, who was known as the Imperial Witch, to engage in a battle without any suspense with the nobles of various sizes. Cornelia, the Witch of the Empire, no matter if it was her own side or the enemy, as long as it was not to her liking, it would usher in a disaster. The lucky ones, perhaps after the disaster, would be left with a little life. The unlucky ones. He had already become a member of the huge pit behind the royal city. Wait a little longer. The young empress has returned in the end. The head of the three great nobles, the man named Cassius Raymond, raised his gaze and casually glanced at the guards who were standing on the city wall, motionless. Yes. Then, in the end, our tradition can still be carried out. The second greatest noble after Cassius Raymond, Henry A. Kendall, nodded his head. Although the young empress who ran away from home was able to escape for a while, she did not know that her willful actions had shaken the neutral faction. The last of the three great nobles, Charlie Colody, revealed a trace of a proud smile. Oomph. No one will let a willful and reckless person sit on the throne. Therefore, our plan is correct. For the Britannia Empire, no doubt, is the best choice. Although card artisan Raymond didn't show a smile, his determined gaze had long since exposed his thoughts. The so-called tradition was that the young empress would choose an outstanding young man from among the nobles to marry. Then, she would rely on the young man's family to stabilize her ruling power over the empire. Such a method, whether for the young empress or the lucky family, was a win-win situation. After all, in history, such examples were not few. The scorching sun was high in the sky. The nobles who had been tortured by the scorching sun finally entered the palace. Regardless of what they were thinking, the moment they stepped through the palace gate, a gust of cool wind blew in their faces, instantly lifting their spirits. As their thoughts gradually began to turn, everyone followed the path, passed through the palace, and arrived at the audience room where the court meeting was held. At this moment, everyone's footsteps stopped at the same time. No matter which side they belonged to, they all subconsciously looked at the three people walking at the front. Today was the day of the court meeting. At the same time, it was also the day to decide something. Everyone was clear on this point, and they were all waiting for the movements of the three people in front. This scene was seen by Ray Minkai and Cornelia, who were standing in the audience room. As expected, this group of nobles who are unwilling to give up are still targeting Her Majesty. Cornelia gritted her teeth and said, Euphemia's escape was undoubtedly the work of these great nobles. This is not bad. At least I don't have to worry about finding trouble for them. Ray Minkai understood Cornelia's hatred. Even before the news of the court meeting spread, Ray Minkai had already prepared for this. Cornelia's gaze turned and fell on Ray Minkai's face, as if she wanted to find a clue from his face. Captain Knight, has Veretta already gathered all the information for you? Yes. To be honest, I'm also very surprised. I did not expect Veretta to secretly gather so much information. Ray Minkai nodded in response. However, it was met with a brainless sentence from Cornelia. Yes, what a sinful man. After saying that, Cornelia no longer paid any attention to Ray Minkai, turned around and left, leaving behind a somewhat bewildered Lei Mingkai, who immediately came to his senses and smiled bitterly. Dong! 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 As the bell slowly rang out, a group of maids with solemn and dignified expressions stepped into the room first, opening up a path to the throne for the empress, who had stepped in after them. As the group of maids entered, all the nobles on both sides immediately turned around and paid their respects to the young empress who stepped into the audience room. At this moment, solemn music sounded as the young empress stepped into the audience room, walked on the red carpet, and ascended to the throne that the people of the empire looked up to. At ease, Euphemia, wearing the empire's crown and imperial robes, raised her right hand slightly, and the attendant beside her immediately shouted, "Your Majesty, all the nobles and officials who are qualified to participate in the court meeting have arrived." Cornelia, who was standing beside Euphemia, scanned the crowd and turned to Euphemia. "Yes, Captain Knight, are the preparations complete?" Euphemia nodded slightly and looked at Rei Mingkai, who was standing on the left side below. "Yes, Your Majesty, the preparations are complete." The conversation between the three of them confused the great nobles standing at the front. Everyone could understand Cornelia's words, but the conversation between Euphemia and Rei Mingkai was confusing. Although they were full of doubts, Euphemia did not give them a chance to think carefully. "Everyone, the purpose of today's court meeting is to welcome the new members of the Britannia Empire." As soon as Euphemia opened her mouth, she attracted everyone's attention. Some of the smarter ones even looked at the young and beautiful girls standing beside Rei Mingkai. Even if the nobles present were scattered all over the Britannia Empire, even if they didn't have much contact with each other, they would still meet each other once. Therefore, the strange girls standing beside Rei Mingkai were undoubtedly the most eye-catching existence. Aislam Visser Iliosia, Teresa Testarossa, Mirare, Nami, Giasuke, Giasuke, Juhu Koichiro, step out. Under Euphemia's signal, the attendant shouted a series of unfamiliar names. Then, under the gaze of many nobles, the girls standing beside Rei Mingkai stepped out one by one and stood under the throne. "Captain Knight, can I not go out? It looks like it's very troublesome." Grabbing Giasuke, who was behind Giasuke, Juhu Koichiro quietly asked Rei Mingkai. Just now, the noble's eyes were undoubtedly attracted by the young and beautiful girls, so Juhu Koichiro and Giasuke were able to escape the attention of the crowd. "No way, Baron Juhu." Rei Mingkai shook his head slightly. Today's imperial court was to completely disclose the existence of the different world to the entire Britannia Empire. Therefore, whether it was the girls, Juhu Koichiro, or Giasuke, it was necessary. Necessary publicity? I know, Captain Knight. Compared to the tangled Juhu Koichiro, Giasuke readily stepped out and stood beside Giasuke, receiving the gaze from many nobles. "Oh, forget it. Just take it for the sake of the Baron." Seeing this, Juhu Koichiro no longer insisted and stepped out. Euphemia and Rei Mingkai looked at each other, took the scepter from Cornelia's hand, got up, and walked down the throne. Aislam Visser Ethiopia. "Yes, Your Majesty." Aislam bowed slightly, but unexpectedly, it caused many nobles to talk. "Quiet." The sound of the scepter hitting the ground sounded, followed by Euphemia's cold shout. "This is Queen Aislam Visser Iliosia from the Visser Empire. Starting today, she will bring a new technology called the ALDNOH reactor to our Britannia Empire. For this reason, I will allow Queen Aislam Visser Iliosia to be my clerk and learn from me how to govern the country." As soon as the statement came out, the audience was in an uproar. A dignified ruler of a country would condescend to learn how to govern the country from the ruler of another country? This was simply a fantasy. Chapter 502. Euphemia's announcement caused everyone to discuss among themselves. The buzzing sound of discussion filled the entire dome of the audience room. Before Euphemia ascended the throne, when the previous Emperor Charles was in charge of the empire, the entire Britannia Empire was belligerent. Every time a country was conquered, the leader of the country would be escorted to the emperor to show his allegiance. However, Euphemia and Ethelham's move was out of everyone's expectations. "Your Majesty." The three nobles looked at each other secretly and exchanged some simple opinions tacitly. For some reason, when Euphemia walked down from the throne and stood in front of Ethelham to announce the news, a sense of loss of control quietly came over the three aristocrats. "Is there any question, Raymond?" Euphemia moved her gaze and fell on the head of the three aristocrats, card artisan Raymond. She knew that in the name of tradition, the mastermind who kept sending information from strangers to her desk was the head of the three aristocrats, card artisan Raymond. "Yes, Your Majesty." Although card artisan Raymond had despised Euphemia so much before, he had no choice but to assume the attitude of a subordinate, respectfully bowing to Euphemia as he spoke. "Although it's a little unexpected, it's the fortune of the Britannia Empire that Her Majesty Ethelham can join our Britannia Empire. However, I don't know how to arrange Her Majesty Ethelham. To be honest, if Her Majesty Ethelham sits with us, I'm afraid. Regarding this point, Raymond, you don't have to worry. As a matter of fact, Her Majesty Ethelham has been following Her Majesty the Queen of the Britannia Empire for quite some time now." The one who interrupted card artisan Raymond's speech was Cornelia, and her words immediately made everyone's gaze fall on Ethelham. This young queen actually decided the destination of this foreign queen who had submitted to the Britannia Empire without saying a word. What a bold move. Privately, after the aristocrats kept exchanging glances, they subconsciously looked at the three aristocrats standing at the front. Faintly, they seemed to have realized that today's court meeting was the opportunity for the young queen to launch an attack on the three aristocrats. It had to be said that the gazes of the nobles who felt more and more that this was the case made the three great nobles standing at the front suddenly feel as if there was a blade on their backs. "What should we do?" The two nobles standing behind card artisan Redmond exchanged glances. Henry Akinda stepped forward and stood beside card artisan Redmond. He then bowed and said, "Your Majesty's decision is wise. However, other than Her Majesty Ethelham, what about the others?" Euphemia did not immediately answer. She raised her hand and guided Ethelham up the stairs to the left of the throne. Cornelia and Ethelham stood on the left side of the throne. Teresa Testarossa. From today onwards, she will be the captain of the warship Avalon, Viscount Mila Ray. She is the leader of the Britannia Empire's Queen's personal knight regiment, the adopted sister of the Empire's knight, Captain Ray Minkai. At the same time, she will be the deputy director of the Empire's Research Institute's cutting-edge body development department, Viscount Nami, genius technology developer. She will be the senior researcher of the Empire's Research Institute's cutting-edge body development department, Baron. Jiezhong Shui and Jiezhong Ainafan are siblings of the same bloodline, and they have superb body technology. Especially Jiezhong Ainafan. Her keen insight and extraordinary thinking were praised by the Empire's Research Institute's director, Earl Royd. Therefore, Jiezhong Shui will be a member of the Queen's personal knight regiment, Baron. Jiezhong Ainafan will be the senior researcher of the Empire's Research Institute, Baron. At the same time, she will be qualified to study in the Empire's university. Euphemia, holding a scepter, stood on the steps, looking down at the aristocrats below, and explained the arrangement of Teresa and the others. However, before Euphemia finished explaining the arrangement of Jiuhu Koichiro, someone finally couldn't help but jump out. As everyone knew, after Euphemia ascended the throne, the war on a global scale became peaceful. Without the battlefield to gain military service, the aristocrats lost the channel to gain greater benefits and fame. Although for the old aristocrats, this was nothing, but after a long time, it gradually became a problem. The older generation of aristocrats didn't care about the amount of military service, but the younger generation relied on military service to improve their status, enhance their prestige, and thus gain more resources from the family and the empire. Without the channel to gain military service, the younger generation gradually changed. Even after Euphemia took control of the throne and publicized the existence of the City of Stars, the younger generation who could participate in Euphemia's development plan for space were few and far between. Hence, even though there was no hope for the younger generation to be promoted, Euphemia actually gave out so many noble titles in one go in such a generous manner. Even if the highest title was only Viscount, the younger generation who lost their military service couldn't even touch the shadow of Baron. Your Majesty, this may be a bit inappropriate, right? Sure enough, not only the three aristocrats, even the neutral party and some of the pro-emperor party couldn't help but speak. Roar, shut up, you're disturbing me. However, as soon as the aristocrats' noisy voices sounded, a terrifying roar suddenly resounded throughout the audience. Pure white steel armor, shining sharp teeth, revealing a trace of murderous aura, stepped on the steps, protecting Euphemia in the middle. That was a huge steel lion with a height of 3 meters, nearly 10 meters long. Wild Lion State Zero. Roar! What's the noise? Shut up for me. The golden pupils swept across the audience, scaring most of the aristocrats into taking a step back. The Empire's sacred beast State Zero. From that day onwards, there was no one who didn't know about it. But to see State Zero's lion form at such a close distance, no matter if it was the three aristocrats or the others, it was the first time. Sacred beast. In the eyes of others, the most common form of State Zero, known as the Empire's sacred beast, was a pure white lion with a body of long pure white fur, with golden radiance between its opening and closing. Or it was a huge steel lion form that far exceeded the size of a normal KMF. Looking at State Zero in front of him, card artisan Raymond couldn't help but swallow a breath. That barbaric aura that came rushing over not only shook card artisan Raymond's mind, but also made a flaw appear in his thinking. Is it quiet now? You guys continue, I'll lie down here. State Zero looked around again and guarded Euphemia lying down at the bottom of the steps. After State Zero's sudden attack, most of the people present wanted to retreat. The fierceness of the Long Fong lion style was obvious to all, especially now. These aristocrats, who were no different from ordinary people, were facing the savage aura of the savage and ferocious State Zero. Their biological instincts that had been passed down for thousands of years quietly awakened and controlled their bodies that were intimidated by the wild lion to retreat. No one dared to use their flesh and blood to fight against the ferocious lion that had a steel body. Euphemia's gaze moved slightly and looked at Ray Minkai. After nodding slightly, she looked at the head of the three aristocrats, card artisan Raymond. Chancellor Raymond, what do you think? Euphemia's voice was calm, but with a sense of authority that couldn't be disobeyed. However, card artisan Raymond knew that if he retreated here, then this young empress would completely control the aristocrats of the empire, and she could do anything she wanted. Yes, Your Majesty, I still feel that something is wrong. Although there are many new members joining the Britannia Empire, it is our honor. However, such a generous reward is unfair to the younger generation of our empire who have always been loyal to the empire and have always been committed to the empire. Card artisan Raymond chose his words carefully and expressed his thoughts. Euphemia nodded and didn't express her opinion. Instead, she looked at Henry Akinda, who was second only to card artisan Raymond. Akinda, what about you? Henry Akinda was silent for a moment and then replied respectfully. My opinion is the same as Raymond's. Euphemia nodded again and still didn't express her opinion. She moved her gaze again and looked at the last of the three aristocrats who had been silent, Charlie Collody. Your Majesty, I think we still need to think about it. Unsurprisingly, since the first generation of the three aristocrats joined hands, they had been advancing and retreating together. Even when facing State Zero, who was lying on the steps, it was still the same. So, does anyone else have any opinions? The three aristocrats' answer was expected, but Euphemia still looked around, waiting for others' opinions. Perhaps in the face of the three aristocrats' attitude, Euphemia didn't show any resistance or an unhappy attitude. The aristocrats were just shocked by the wild lion began to have other thoughts. This time, to their surprise, even the royalists had different opinions. But even if there were differences, those who supported Euphemia were the minority of the royalists. This disagreement made Cornelia, who was standing on the right side of the throne, secretly clench her teeth. She didn't expect that at this critical moment, the royalists who swore loyalty to Euphemia would drop the ball. As her resentful eyes flashed, Cornelia saw that Mecha was still calm. As the knight predicted this situation, as if he felt Cornelia's gaze, Mecha nodded slightly to her, and then turned back to the brown beauty Veretta who was standing behind him. Without saying anything, just a slight nod, Veretta had already understood Mecha's meaning. It seems that everyone is very resistant to the addition of a new member. Euphemia smiled reassuringly at Teresa, Mira, and the others. She turned around and returned to the front of the throne through the path that Wild Lion Zero had made. She turned around again and looked down at everyone below. Why? I remember someone told me before that maintaining the stability of an empire is undoubtedly maintaining its tradition. Under the inertia brought by tradition, the current situation of the empire is undoubtedly the most stable and also the most difficult to defeat. Euphemia's gaze gradually moved to card artisan Raymond. Without a doubt, Euphemia's target was him. Card artisan Raymond flashed a few times. He knew that the young empress's counterattack had finally arrived. After taking a few deep breaths, card artisan Raymond, the head of the three aristocrats, stood up and slightly raised his head to look at the young empress. Yes, Your Majesty. Now that Your Majesty has just ascended the throne, whether it is within or outside the country, it is in an unstable state. At this critical moment, if something were to happen, I am afraid that the foundation that our Britannia Empire has built over 100 years will be destroyed. Then, Raymond, do you have any suggestions? Or is it a good idea? To card artisan Raymond's surprise, Euphemia did not open her mouth to refute his words. Instead, she went along with his words and went all the way. This abnormal attitude made card artisan Raymond's words suddenly stuck in his throat, and he was unable to say anything. Card artisan Raymond, who had been rolling around among the aristocrats of the empire for a long time, instinctively felt that the young empress had dug a trap for him. Say, or not say. At this moment, a soft voice came from behind. Chancellor Raymond, what are you still hesitating for? This was Henry A. Kendall's voice. Without turning his head, card artisan Raymond knew that the remaining Charlie Colody was also the same. There is no turning back. Card artisan Raymond took a few steps forward and stood in front of the stairs. He looked up at the young empress and shouted loudly, Your Majesty, Her Imperial Majesty Euphemia, Lee Britannia. In order to maintain the stability of the empire, Your Majesty needs someone who can support Your Majesty to sit on the throne and govern the empire. Your Majesty, please make a decision as soon as possible. Looking at the face that showed that he was thinking for her, and the face that was filled with grief, Euphemia could not help but feel a wave of disgust in her heart. He asked back and forth, but all he got was the same answer. In order to maintain the stability of the empire, Euphemia must have a prince by her side, and the so-called prince must be chosen from the aristocrats. Undoubtedly, it was to use the royal family's influence to expand their own family's influence. This is really ridiculous. A wave of anger quietly rose from Euphemia's eyes. Raymond, your so-called suggestion, your so-called good idea is this. Yes, Your Majesty, in order to maintain the stability of the empire. Shut up, Raymond. You disappoint me. Euphemia shouted coldly, interrupting card artisan Raymond's words. At the same time, Wild Lion Zero, who was lying on the stairs, raised its huge steel head and looked down at card artisan Raymond. Under the cold gleam of the sharp teeth was card artisan Raymond's stubborn expression. Your Majesty, this is... Pot. Without any warning, A stack of documents fell from the sky and directly hit card artisan Raymond's face. Card artisan Raymond. Maybe you should take a look at these documents. Take a look at what your so-called tradition has made you do. Unknowingly, Veretta walked up the stairs with a stack of documents in her hands and stood beside Euphemia. The documents that hit card artisan Raymond's face just now were the documents in Veretta's hands. Under Euphemia's cold voice, card artisan Raymond saw a few names that he was extremely familiar with from the scattered papers. Those were the names of the younger generation in his family. At the same time, they were the most vile ones who had committed many crimes, but under the protection of his family, they had escaped the Empire's punishment time and time again. At this moment, card artisan Raymond understood. The young empress on the throne was already prepared. She was not as innocent as they had imagined, nor was she the empress who had been regarded as a vase by the aristocrats over the years. The documents in Veretta's hands were probably the crimes of the three aristocrats since their rise to power. At the same time, it was also the scythe of death that sent the three aristocrats to hell. Raymond, sensing card artisan Raymond's strange behavior, the two people hurriedly called out, but were stopped by card artisan Raymond. Card artisan Raymond raised his gaze and looked at Euphemia, then looked at Veretta, who was holding the documents, then looked at the wild lion who was looking down at him. Finally, he looked at Ray Minkai, who was standing opposite him and hadn't said a word since the beginning. Ray Minkai, Imperial Knight Commander, we have indeed underestimated you. Ray Minkai's gaze moved, but he only smiled faintly in response to card artisan Raymond. The aristocrats who were used to being high up didn't know what kind of situation the Britannia Empire was facing. Even though Euphemia had gone to great lengths to bring them to the city of Star Glory, it was only used as a topic for them to talk about after a meal. The aristocrats who only cared about the world in front of them and refused to move forward, rather than dragging the empire down, might as well get rid of them today. Without receiving any response from Ray Minkai, card artisan Raymond seemed to already know the fate of himself and his family. Your Majesty, please give the order. The moment he said this, card artisan Raymond, who was revered by tens of thousands of people and was regarded as a role model by many aristocrats, seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. His entire aura turned gray and drifted away. Perhaps in that second, this card artisan Raymond, who had once been full of mettle and had attempted to control the young empress through marriage, would die. Personal Knight Regiment, take card artisan Raymond, Henry Akand, and Charlie Collody away to await the trial of the three aristocrats. Yes, Your Majesty. It wasn't that no one wanted to speak up for the three aristocrats, but when Euphemia ordered her men to take Cassius and the other two away, the wild lion that was lying on the stairs suddenly stood up. The armed sword on its back moved back and forth towards the crowd. The cold light reflected from the blade, piercing everyone's eyes and causing them to feel pain. After watching the three being taken away by the Personal Knight Regiment without any resistance, the pair of burning eyes quietly moved and made contact with Ray Minkai's gaze in midair. Seeing Ray Minkai's worried eyes, the anger in Euphemia's eyes disappeared, leaving only tenderness and a trace of shyness. Under this trace of shyness, the young empress slightly raised the scepter in her hand and forcefully pressed it on the ground. Silence. Everyone was silent. Card artisan Raymond is right. The Britannia Empire needs a prince. But I don't want the Britannia Empire's prince to be born from the aristocrats. Because, before card artisan Raymond's suggestion, the position of prince next to the empress of the Britannia Empire had already been taken. The shyness in her eyes gradually faded, leaving behind a determined and unrepentant light. At this moment, Cornelia, who noticed Euphemia's abnormality, moved the corner of her mouth, but chose to acquiesce. As Euphemia's elder sister, how could Cornelia not notice her sister's thoughts? But now, Euphemia had already spread her wings and soared high, a phoenix that the world looked up to. Captain of the Britannia Empire's Personal Knight Regiment, Imperial Knight Regiment, Ray Minkai, stepped forward. Once the words were spoken, Ray Minkai immediately became the focus of the entire crowd. Right now, Lei Mingkai was dumbfounded. No one had ever told him that Euphemia would make such a move in the imperial court. On the throne, the young empress's mouth curved into a gentle smile. She reached out her left hand to her guardian knight and said softly, "Kai, my knight, come here, come on my side." Chapter 503. The sword at his waist was gradually removed and replaced by a sword called the King's Sword. This was not the legendary sword, but a sword that the previous emperors of the Britannia Empire ordered to imitate, according to the legend. Although the sword was placed in the palace's warehouse after it was successfully manufactured, it was now able to see the light of day again under the orders of Euphemia. Excalibur, with his left hand on the hilt, Rei Mingkai smiled helplessly in his heart. He did not expect that he would become the owner of this legendary sword one day. Moreover, there was an additional crown on his head called the Prince. Euphemia not only solved the dilemma brought by the three great aristocrats, but also announced the decision to appoint Rei Mingkai as the Prince of the Britannia Empire. Opposition? That's right. There would definitely be people who would oppose this decision. However, under the shock of the three great aristocrats' sudden downfall, no one dared to oppose this decision on the spot. Thus, the Britannia Empire's decision to welcome a new prince instantly spread throughout the world. Congratulations! Congratulations! Captain Knight, no, now it should be Your Highness the Prince. Royd and Cecil walked out from the corner and repeatedly congratulated Rei Mingkai. Congratulations, Your Highness the Prince. Cecil seemed to have become a little reserved. No, this is just an announcement of this decision. Rei Mingkai smiled bitterly and shook his head. Although it was just a verbal statement, the surrounding people had already regarded Rei Mingkai as the Prince of the Britannia Empire. After all, after Euphemia disappeared from the Battle of the Nine States and later returned, the relationship between Rei Mingkai and Euphemia was clear to anyone with a discerning eye. Now, he was just making this relationship public. However, this is the decision that everyone wants, isn't it? Your Highness the Prince. Royd's smile had a trace of relief. Your Highness, although it's a bit belated to say this now, when His Highness the Prince went out on missions, His Majesty suffered more than we imagined. Recalling Euphemia's performance in the court session, Rei Mingkai couldn't help but lower his gaze. Really? In that case, now is the time to collect interest. Rei Mingkai held the hilt of the legendary sword tightly. As the cloak embroidered with the blazing lion fluttered, Rei Mingkai had already stepped out of the palace gate. Outside the palace gate, young knights dressed in the uniform of the personal guard knight regiment stood with their backs straight and their eyes resolute. Behind these knights, the silver lionheart knights were particularly eye-catching. Your Highness, please give the order. The one who led these young knights here was Titania. Titania, Chiligu didn't come? Rei Mingkai looked around but did not see Kiligu's figure. The next mission wasn't going to be an easy one. Therefore, Rei Mingkai hoped to use the most powerful force in his hands to create a terrifying memory for the entire Britannia Empire. Yes, Ziligu and Fianna have already left. Titania's answer stunned Rei Mingkai at first. Then he laughed heartily. If two nation-destroying mech pilots were to move out together, the personal guard knight regiment would probably only be able to tour the three aristocratic residences for a day. Without thinking much, Rei Mingkai pulled out the legendary sword from his waist and pointed it forward. Personal guard knight regiment, target, the three aristocratic residences. Move out. At this moment, the mechs roared. The Queen's personal guard knight regiment was like a flood of steel, sweeping across the entire kingdom. Bang! Bang! The sound of gunfire became ghosts that lingered in the sky of the Empire, constantly circling and never dissipating. On the square of the royal capital, there were numerous gallows. On them were the people who had committed many crimes and were being punished by the Empire. Wow, is this another reckoning? On the square of the kingdom, a girl with beautiful long black hair tied into a high ponytail looked at the scene that was happening in the kingdom in surprise. Over there, please don't come near here. The soldiers guarding the gallows were very alert. "Oh, sorry. I'm just a little curious. Bye-bye." As the high ponytail swayed back and forth, the girl had already turned and left the square of the kingdom, heading straight for the palace. I didn't expect Euphemia and Ray Minkai to make such a big scene. The struggle in the palace is really scary. However, the girl did not know that the moment she appeared in the kingdom, her presence had already reached Ray Minkai's desk. "Mimi is here? Get ready. Also inform Her Majesty." Ray Minkai glanced at the photos taken by the spies all over the kingdom and shook his head helplessly. It was a matter that could be solved with one word, but it unknowingly caused the entire kingdom's intelligence network to be shaken. This really made people feel helpless. With her hands behind her back, Mimi leisurely came in front of Ray Minkai. "Welcome, Mimi. I didn't expect you to come at this time. Aren't you going to take the test with the Venerable?" Looking at the swaying ponytail, Ray Minkai was very puzzled. Mimi clearly did not move, but the ponytail was moving without wind. "Grandfather, I've passed the test. Today is my day off, so I came here to take a seat." Mimi looked around and found that there was nothing new in Ray Minkai's office. She looked at Ray Minkai and asked, "Where is Her Majesty Euphemia?" "She's coming. Please wait a moment." Ray Minkai poured the black tea prepared by Veretta into a teacup and handed it to Mimi. "Is that so? Well, then I won't wait for Her Majesty Euphemia." Mimi pondered for a moment and went straight to the point. "Ray Minkai. In fact, I'm here for a mission." Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows, but he was not surprised. "Please speak." Mimi nodded, picked up the teacup, and took a sip before she started talking. "Ray Minkai, do you still remember the chip that Grandfather gave you?" Ray Minkai nodded slightly, turned around, and walked to the desk. He took out a carefully preserved chip from the drawer. This was the chip that Invincible East gave to Ray Minkai. In fact, this chip has some unusual parts, and this unusual part may be related to your upcoming mission. Mimi's gaze wandered around the chip. "Mission? You've decided so quickly?" Ray Minkai calculated the time and realized that less than a week had passed since the end of his last mission. "Well, there's no other way. Who asked your situation to be unique in the Space Administration? If we calculate based on the frequency of a normal patrol officer, your current frequency is already 3 times that of a normal patrol officer. At the same time period?" "Yes, at the same time period." Mimi gestured with her right hand. "Normally, after a patrol officer completes a mission, they will have a month to 3 months of rest and recuperation. This is due to the special circumstances of the Space Administration. After all, no one can predict what kind of accident will happen during the course of the work." "I know that, but I haven't even finished a week, and I have to go on patrol?" "Well, I'm very sorry. I've said it just now. This is a special situation. Moreover, the Space Administration will not treat you unfairly." Mimi waved her hand, and a list of materials, even body parts, and many other names appeared in front of Ray Minkai. "This is the list of subsidies for your vacation. As long as you agree to go on patrol, then the items on the list will be delivered in the shortest time possible. In addition, this list is based on the current technological level of the Britannia Empire. So, you don't need to worry about the items on the list not being usable." Looking at the list full of names, Ray Minkai sighed secretly. "It seems that I have to go. Otherwise, I'm not worthy of such a generous reward." Click. At this time, the door opened. Euphemia, who was dressed in a white imperial robe, slowly walked into the office while being escorted by the crowd. "Welcome to my empire." Mimi. Euphemia first looked at Ray Minkai, then saluted Mimi. "I'm here to disturb you again. Her Majesty Euphemia. I hope I won't cause you any trouble." Mimi waved her hand and glanced at the crowd. Euphemia also noticed this small movement. "You can leave first." Everyone bowed and slowly retreated, leaving only Ray Minkai, Euphemia, and Mimi. After the door closed, Mimi leaned back on the sofa and looked at Euphemia. "It seems that you have the empire in your hands. The square in the royal city really surprised me." Euphemia's face darkened, but she didn't hide anything. "Yes." That's the punishment for the crimes committed in the past. The so-called nobles will always be associated with crimes that are unclear and unknown to the public. Is that so? Forget it. No matter which world it is, it's almost the same. So, let's not talk about these things that spoil the mood. Himimi waved her hand and took the initiative to stop this topic. Yes, I'm sorry for being rude. Euphemia nodded, then sat down beside Ray Minkai and noticed the list on the table. It's my payment for my attendance. UFFI. There are a lot of supplies, especially in some key areas. Our industrial department just submitted a list of urgently needed supplies. Euphemia browsed quickly. In just a few breaths, she saw the importance of this list to the Britannia Empire. Is that so? Then, my mission this time is worth it. Ray Minkai picked up the list and waved it. Mission? Are we setting off again? Euphemia froze for a moment. She didn't expect a new mission to come so quickly. 2 days ago, Ray Minkai and Euphemia announced the oath that they made. Yes. UFFI. Didn't you say that our empire is lacking these supplies? No matter what, Lei Minkai's mission this time was inevitable. Whether it was the development needs of the empire or the chip that Dongfang Bubi gave him, none of them were as important as the time bomb in Euphemia's body. Moreover, there was no progress on the materialization of the fragment that he gave to the Ministry of Justice. This made Ray Minkai even more worried. But the ministers just submitted a memorial this morning. Euphemia knew the importance of the mission of the Space Administration, but thinking of the memorial that the ministers jointly submitted this morning, Euphemia's voice gradually became softer. UFFI, is there a problem? As Euphemia's voice became softer and softer, Ray Minkai was unable to hear what she was saying clearly. Himimi, who was sitting on the opposite side, sized up the two of them for a while, and then understood. Cough, cough. Seems like I came at the wrong time. How about this? I'll go back. No, just leave it at that. However, Ray Minkai's attitude was firm. Euphemia looked at Ray Minkai in shock. Are you sure? Himimi looked at Ray Minkai and asked. I'm sure. Ray Minkai nodded his head. Good. Then, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., report to the Space Administration. She came like the wind and left like the wind. After Himimi left, only the two of them were left in the office. The young empress sat on the sofa and remained silent. Ray Minkai stood by the window with his back facing Euphemia. He did not know what to say for a moment. Minkai, don't worry and go. This time, I'll stay here and lead the empire forward. Unexpectedly, Euphemia did not request to follow Ray Minkai, but chose to stay. UFFI. Ray Minkai turned around and looked at Euphemia. His mouth moved, and thousands of words finally turned into gratitude. Thank you. My cute highness. The moon set and the sun rose. When the sun rose from the horizon, Ray Minkai left the capital of the Britannia Empire and stepped into the teleportation gate to Xingyao City. It's another solo mission. What a pity. Your Highness. Standing in front of the door of the time control department, Lei Minkai heard a familiar voice. State 0, you're too heavy. To this, Ray Minkai only said a word, and the owner of the voice gave himself away. Shut up, Kai. I just ate a little too much cherry stone. Anyway, in the state of the tusk lion, my weight is constant. But in the state of a kitten, you're fat. Roar. Kai, you're looking for death. A roar swept over. It was as if a giant beast from the wilderness had pounced on Ray Minkai. Roar. Ray Minkai did not care about the deafening roar. Instead, he reached out his hand and pinched the gate of destiny. The little white cat that was clamoring to bite Ray Minkai was brought in front of him. Well, you really ate a lot. State 0. Roar. Who cares? Anyway, all the cherry stones in the warehouse are mine. It's a waste not to eat them. Eat your fill. Time of work. State 0. Chapter 504. Planet Eden. This was a planet that was suitable for human habitation. From the moment the Earth unified and discovered its existence, humans began to migrate to this planet. At the same time, a military facility called New Edward Flight Test Center was built on it. It was to use this military facility built on Planet Eden to carry out a new airframe plan to replace the current VF fighter. Project Supernova. This was a brand new plan to replace the old VF-11 with a new fighter that Earth unification had high hopes for. Of course, this was not a brand new plan that was specially launched for a single fighter. Instead, it was a test plan that was carried out by 2 test flight teams from different development companies. In a competition between these 2 competing test flight teams, whoever developed a fighter that could stand out in the final test will become the final winner of Earth unification's replacement of the old VF-11. Therefore, the YF-19 test flight team from New Star Industries and the YF-21 test flight team from GE Galaxy began to compete fiercely in the New Edward Flight Test Center. However, in this fierce competition, the YF-19 test flight team welcomed at least 4 test pilots one after another. However, these skillful and confident test pilots were all defeated in the face of the ultra-high performance of the YF-19. Either they were sent to the hospital for emergency treatment, or they were promoted by 2 levels on the spot and returned to their families with their nameplates and bodies. This was undoubtedly a great nightmare for the YF-19 test flight team. However, GE Galaxy's YF-21 test flight team was not happy about this. Although the test pilots of the YF-19 test flight team repeatedly failed, replaced them, and the test progress continued to be delayed, the YF-21 team, which was 1 step ahead, also encountered the same accident. YF-21's development director and test pilot, Garnet Gal Bowman, suddenly had an accident during a test flight. Although with Garnet's efforts, the YF-21 was preserved and did not suffer much overall damage. Garnet was injured by the explosion of the instrument in the cockpit. The most serious injury was his right hand that was penetrated by the debris from the explosion. The rest of his body was only a superficial injury. For ordinary people, perhaps they would just have to wear a sling and spend some time with their right hand in a sling. However, for Garnet, it was a fatal injury. Seeing that YF-21, which he had poured his heart and soul into, was about to compete in the Supernova project, he encountered such an accident. With his right hand injured, Garrett could be said to have lost the opportunity to drive the YF-21. Therefore, in desperation, Garrett could only submit the report to the owner of the Supernova project, Colonel Millard, and start the repair work of YF-21. Fortunately, the overall structure of the YF-21 was relatively well preserved. After the various instruments in the cockpit were replaced, it could be repaired and debugged. As the day of the test was getting closer and closer, the report submitted by Garrett finally received a response. Garrett. This was the test pilot sent by the headquarters to support the YF-19 team. His name is Ray Minkai. As soon as he walked into Millard's office, Garrett saw a young pilot wearing a pilot's jacket with a white cat lying on his shoulder. Garrett didn't say anything. He only responded to Millard with a salute before sizing up the young man who was standing upright. Unbeknownst to him, while he was sizing up the pilot sent by headquarters, the other party was also sizing him up. Even if the bloodline of the Jet Lottie was miniaturized, he still had a height of more than 2 meters. Standing in front of him, there was indeed an unusual sense of oppression. However, Ray Minkai already knew what kind of person the person in front of him was. Garrett. This was one of the goals of Ray Minkai's mission this time. Although the mission of the Space Administration did not mention much about Garrett, from his intuition, Ray Minkai faintly felt that this might be an opportunity. Especially when Ray Minkai saw Garrett, who was supposed to be piloting the YF-21 for a test flight mission, but his right hand was injured, the intuition in his heart became even stronger. Therefore, Ray Minkai must make good use of Himimi and use some unknown power to create an opportunity for him to become a test pilot sent by Earth integration to this flight test center. Ray Minkai. This is the identity ID of Earth integration. After you enter that world, you should be able to use it. Thinking of Himimi's instructions, Ray Minkai gradually formed a plan in his mind. I don't remember writing in the report that a pilot with a little white cat would be sent to support. Garrett withdrew his gaze from Ray Minkai and said in a deep voice, "This might already be considered a provocation. Ray Minkai moved his gaze slightly and glanced at Malad, who was watching from the sidelines and did not express any opinions. He took a step forward and retorted, "If you only rely on the standard of pet to judge the strength of the other party, then I think an injury to your right hand is indeed a very commendable thing." What? An injury to his right hand was something that Garrett did not want to happen, and it was also his scar. Unexpectedly, Ray Minkai opened his scar as soon as he opened his mouth. Anger suddenly rushed to Garrett's head, but at the moment of his outburst, Milad finally spoke. "Stop, Garrett." After stopping Garrett's actions, Milad shifted his gaze to Ray Minkai and introduced him, Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai. This is General Galaxy, Director Garrett Gao Bowman, who is responsible for the development of YF-21 and is also the test pilot of YF-21. But not long ago, Director Garrett had an accident during a test flight, resulting in an injury to his right hand. That's why you're here to support. Yes, Colonel Malad. Ray Minkai responded, then saluted Garrett. Director Garrett, I'm Ray Minkai, Second Lieutenant. From today onwards, I'll be responsible for the test flight mission of YF-21. Nice to meet you. Garrett suppressed the anger in his heart, but he was reluctant to shake hands with Ray Minkai. But under Malad's gaze, Garrett finally reached out and reconciled with Ray Minkai. However, the handshake between the two sides was a little long. The physique of the Jetlati people is really as strong as the rumors say. After the two sides released their hands, Ray Minkai praised with a relaxed expression. However, Garrett's expression was one of astonishment. Just now, when Garrett shook hands with Ray Minkai, he did play a little trick. However, he didn't expect that under Garrett's gradually increasing strength, not only did Ray Minkai not show any signs of pain, but he also made Garrett feel a force that was almost the same as his, one that was resisting each other. Is this the power possessed by humans? The physique of the Jetlati people was famous throughout the galaxy. After transforming into giants, the Jetlati people could even rely on their physical body to use the heavy weapons used to equip the VF fighter. In comparison, humans could only be described as weak. Seeing Ray Minkai in front of him, Garrett couldn't help but re-evaluate his thoughts. Perhaps he had really misjudged him. Colonel Malad, Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai, came at the right time. Now the repair work of YF-21 is completed. We can start the test again. With all kinds of thoughts in his mind, Garrett re-reported to Malad about the repair progress of YF-21. Has the repair work been completed? Malad pondered for a moment, then looked at Ray Minkai. Second Lieutenant, do you have any questions? Ray Minkai responded, No. No problem. Colonel, I can perform the mission at any time. And then let's get started. Malad nodded, and then when Garrett was about to leave with Ray Minkai, he mentioned it casually. By the way, Yang Nguyen seems to have found a test pilot, and he will report here in the near future. Garrett nodded slightly. I see. However, our YF-21 is the best. No matter how many pilots come from Yang Nguyen's side, the result will not change. It's good to have this confidence. Then, I will leave Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai to you for the time being. Understood. The hill-like figure walked silently in front. After coming out of Malad's office, Garrett had been focused on leading the way in front. He did not slow down, nor did he turn around to introduce everything about the new Edward Flight Test Center to Ray Minkai. Does that big guy hate you? White Cat State Zero lay motionlessly on Ray Minkai's shoulder, but its voice sounded in Ray Minkai's mind. When Garrett looked at it just now, that indifferent and contemptuous gaze made White Cat State Zero gnash its teeth in hatred. If it was not for the fact that it could not reveal its identity now, White Cat State Zero would have jumped up and greeted Garrett with its sharp teeth. Probably, Ray Minkai shrugged his shoulders indifferently. The White Cat, State Zero, who was lying on his shoulder, quickly changed its position to stabilize its body. Oomph. I feel like a human child whose favorite toy has been snatched away. White Cat State Zero glanced at Garrett's back disdainfully, revealing two sharp canine teeth. Quiet. We've reached Naku. Garrett stopped in front and lowered his body slightly in front of the checkpoint leading to Neku, letting the detection probe aim at his pupil. At the same time, he also put his left hand on the palm print detector. I'm Garrett, now leading the new test pilot to start the test mission. After a round of inspection, after the pupil, voice print, and palm print were all confirmed, the Neku where YF-21 was parked opened in front of Ray Minkai. Surrounded by more than 10 ground crew members, a fighter that Ray Minkai was very familiar with was quietly parked in Neku. Through the many connections from the side, it was carefully tested again and again by the system, trying to find possible faults. YF-21 Swift. This is the product of my painstaking efforts. Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai, do you know the importance of your mission? Garrett stopped and looked at the new fighter that was quietly waiting for the arrival of his knight from afar. Yes, I have a full understanding of the upcoming mission. Ray Minkai responded without hesitation. Change your clothes and sit on it. Let me see to what extent your awareness has reached. Without any hesitation or pause, Garrett raised his left hand and pointed at the YF-21 Swift. His voice was so loud that it attracted everyone who was preparing for YF-21. Garrett was straightforward, and Ray Minkai was even more straightforward. Even if he was watched by everyone, Ray Minkai swiftly changed into the pilot's suit specially designed for YF-21 under Garrett's guidance. It was equipped with the BDI, brainwave control system developed by Garrett. Although it was not much different from other pilot suits, there was an obvious difference in the subtle feeling. Especially after Ray Minkai sat in the cockpit of YF-21, he waited for the ground crew to put on the coat that was linked to the BDI system. Second Lieutenant, I will temporarily take care of your cat for you. In Garrett's huge palm was the white cat that looked obedient and motionless, but in fact, it was secretly cursing. Hey, Kai, you won't let this big guy look at me, right? In this regard, Ray Minkai was unmoved. The white cat State Zero grinned and struggled a few times, but found that Garrett's grip was indeed very strong. In desperation, the white cat State Zero could only choose to stay obediently in order to avoid hurting Garrett, who it regarded as a big guy. The first and second sensory system, there is no abnormality. Brainwave control system, the connection is good. The staff in charge of the monitoring system raised his head and looked at Garrett. Members who participated in the YF-21 development project knew that to be able to truly pilot the YF-21 and control the BDI, brainwave control system loaded on it, one must learn 45 hours of relevant introductory knowledge in advance, 35 hours of training to establish images in the brain, and at least 120 hours of extremely time-consuming training to establish a database of brainwave activity. Only then would one be qualified to pilot the YF-21. The members who were very familiar with this saw that Garrett actually allowed the new pilot to board the YF-21 at once. No one would not be puzzled. Let's begin. Garrett did not pay attention to the doubts of his team members, but directly ordered. Perhaps he wanted to test the ability of this support pilot. Or perhaps he wanted to let this support pilot have a taste of his own medicine. In short, with Garrett's acquiescence, the code of the BDI system was finally linked to Ray Minkai. Second Lieutenant, do you know about meditation? Garrett's voice suddenly sounded in Ray Minkai's ear. Ray Minkai did not speak, but silently said yes in his heart. In the next second, a voice that was synthesized by electrons and replicated Ray Minkai's voice to the greatest extent suddenly sounded. Astonishment, surprise, all appeared on the faces of the members of the YF-21 development team. In addition to the surprise, everyone's eyes also converged on Garrett's face. Similarly, they saw the surprise on Garrett's face. Continue. Garrett took a deep breath and ordered. A group of self-righteous fools. The well-behaved, white cat State Zero glanced slightly at the people around and secretly laughed in his heart. With Ray Minkai's strength, coupled with the secret assistance of the white cat State Zero, wouldn't this fighter be easy to capture? The cockpit cover slowly closed, and Ray Minkai was also completely linked to the YF-21 at this moment. Man-machine brainwave connection. Echo complete. Garrett spoke again. Second Lieutenant Ray Minkai. Can the setting of the BDI system in the brain do it? The corners of Ray Minkai's mouth curled up slightly, and he directly responded to Garrett with practical actions. As Ray Minkai's brainwaves became more active, the 3 cameras installed at the nose of the YF-21 kept moving and changing the shooting angle. A picture that was constantly distorted but quickly adjusted to normal magnification quietly generated in Ray Minkai's mind. At the same time, with the movement of Ray Minkai's eyeballs, various camera methods, such as X-ray, infrared, normal light, were switched one by one. BDI system setup completed. In the midst of the incredulous voice, Garrett slowly closed his eyes and seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. This new mech pilot seemed to be even more capable than he had imagined. Second Lieutenant, take off. Understood. As a result, the YF-21, which lost the test pilot due to accidental damage and almost lost the qualification to compete, once again took off from the takeoff runway of the new Edward Flight Test Center. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.